You have to regard yourself as a cloud in the flesh. Because you see, clouds never make mistakes. Did you ever see a cloud that was misshapen? Did you ever see a badly designed wave? No, they always do the right thing. Now, so as a matter of fact do we, because we are natural beings, just like clouds and waves. Only we have complicated games which cause us to doubt ourselves. But if you will treat yourself for a while as a cloud or wave and realize that you can't make a mistake, whatever you do, because even if you do something that seems to be totally disastrous, it'll all come out in the wash somehow or other. Then, through this capacity, you will develop a kind of confidence, and through confidence you will be able to trust your own intuition.
You have to have a term in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual in order to then call it a disease and treat it as a disease and write a prescription for it. When I went to medical school, there were only 6 or 7 items in the manual. Now there are over 300. I mean, you mean to tell me that there have been 294 diseases discovered in the last 60 years? In psychiatry alone? It's a joke. It's an epidemic of psychiatry that we are dealing with. We don't have an epidemic of mental illness, we have an epidemic of psychiatry. You eat too much, it's a disease, it's an addiction. You smoke too much, it's a disease. You are too unhappy, it's a disease. You're too thin, it's a disease. You're too fat, it's a disease. You have too little sex, it's a disease. You have too much sex, it's a disease. No free will, it's all chemicals. No self-discipline, no self-control. The chemical imbalance meshes very well with the idea that you give a drug which restores the balance. It's a story, a mythology, a fable. And that's a baseline from which we're operating now in America. The child doesn't perform the way he should or behaves he should. He is not responsible. Some chemical will give him a chemical. You hear day in and day out on television that this is a mental illness and that's a mental illness. And Zoloft is advertised. Beer you can't advertise, but Zoloft you can advertise. Now this is it's not just psychiatry, it's the whole psychiatrization of the culture. Now what's more toxic, Zoloft or beer? Amen. Case closed. See, the internal contradiction in these very concepts is so total that they don't stand up to any scrutiny. Nobody has yet measured, demonstrated, or created a test to show that somebody has a chemical imbalance in their brain. Period. Psychiatrists are getting more and further and further and further away from this human-to-human touch. And they are becoming more and more quacks, where they talk and act and impersonate doctors. They talk about diagnoses and treatments and the brain and all this kind of stuff about which they know nothing. Zero. It's not science, it's politics and economics. That's what psychiatry is, politics and economics. Behavior control. It is not science, it is not medicine. This is so big that it boggles the mind.
In particular, one of the most famous is an account that Robert Monroe, who founded the, Monroe Institute and so forth, that the CIA used to use sometimes as a place to conduct advanced remote viewing. Robert Monroe, in his second book, Far Journeys, I think from 1985, basically says that in the course of his astral projections, he discovered that we're living in a control system that is managed by entities who work for a demiurge that's harvesting us for what he called loosh.
Mm-hmm.
He said that we're in a loosh farm, that humans are being deliberately subjected to conditions that create extreme emotional states. Extreme suffering, misery, fear, terror, ecstasy, extreme desire, pathological impulses, And these are all being used to basically generate a form of energy that they can harvest from the human soul, including after death, where they basically juice souls for the loosh. Now, there was also a researcher called Carla Turner, who I believe was killed, even though she supposedly died of cancer at the age of 48. The CIA has something that mimics a very fast-acting cancer, and they've used this on a number of occasions to kill prominent people, I believe also including the Shah of Iran.
Really?
Yeah.
Who else?
Do you remember Peter Jennings did this special on UFOs? Do you remember that? In the night, whenever it was that he died, shortly before his death, he did this huge special on UFOs for which he had recorded like days and days worth of footage with all kinds of prominent whistleblowers. And it was supposed to air on primetime television.
Is that true?
With him as the narrator. Yeah, they aired it, but what they aired excluded 90% of the material.
I didn't know that. Peter Jennings did a UFO special, including a lot of whistleblowers.
Extensive.
I had no idea.
Like, it was supposed to be like a multi-part program that would air over weeks or something. And he records this thing, gets cancer, drops dead.
Really?
Like within a year of like this program airing.
I had no idea. I didn't know about any of this.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Peter,
So I think
he
that's
was like
another...
Walter Cronkite 2.0.
That's
sort
right.
of case.
So that's another case of it.
What?
And so I think Carla Turner was killed by this. In any case, Carla Turner did interviews with a lot of experiencers, abductees, who reported the same kinds of things as Robert Monroe did in Far Journeys, where they said that we are in a control system that's being managed from out of a metallic sphere just beyond the Earth. And they describe the inside of this thing.
What?
I think, going back to our first conversation, what they're describing is the inside of the moon. That there is what we might call, using the Soviet language, a psychotronic control system, a kind of spectral technology inside of the moon, which is impinging on and manipulating humans in the afterlife state.
What?
And it's not omnipotent.
Yeah.
It's not a flawless system. So it's possible to assert your free will and self-determination in the face of this system, but it's very difficult. So a lot of people have had near-death experiences, for example. They describe being pulled toward this light. It's like they couldn't resist going into the light.
Yeah.
They tried in some cases, but it was almost as if it was an electromagnet, like pulling them into it.
Sure.
And then when they go into the light, one of the most common things that's described is that people are shown their dead relatives and religious authority figures, like Jesus. And, or like if you're a Hindu, you see Hindu gods, interestingly. I'll give you a terrifying case from a Hindu in a minute. So you're pulled into this light, and then they show you your dead relatives, and they show you Jesus and whatever. Well, here's the problem, Jesse, is that if you look at Dr. Ian Stevenson's extremely rigorous research on reincarnation that he did at the University of Virginia for decades on children's spontaneous memories of past lives, all the cases show that the average interval between death and reincarnation is something like, it could be anywhere from 6 months to 3 years maximum. It's usually not more than several years. So when you are having a near-death experience and your grandmother, and let's say you're in your 60s in your 60s, and you see your grandmother who died when you were in your 20s, that's bullshit. You are being shown an artificially generated simulacrum of your dead relatives to manipulate you. By a psychotronic technology.
This is getting
by
into...
a psychotronic technology.
You really think that?
Yes, I do.
Really?
And I say that as someone who was, at the bedside, at the deathbed of a couple of my relatives who were experiencing these things. When people are very close to death, they also see dead relatives come around their hospital beds. Very commonly reported. And so one case was my great aunt, or I was there while she was like describing to, not describing to us, she was having conversations with dead relatives that, the other family members knew, oh, that's so-and-so, she's talking to so-and-so, as if he's like in the hospital room. And the most striking case was with my own grandmother, my Persian grandmother, to whom I owe the fact that I fluently speak Persian, because both of my parents worked when I was growing up, and they would leave me with her during the days, and she hardly spoke any English. So I learned like Persian practically as my first language in New York. So I was very close to my grandmother. And when she was dying, this exact thing happened. She started talking to my dead grandfather. Now, my Persian grandfather died when my father was 4. Okay? That guy reincarnated 60, 70 years ago. So she's talking to something that's being projected into our mind psychotronically.
But how do you know it's being projected psychotronically and it's not just a function of her own old age and
sure. I mean, that's the conventional skeptical response. I would say, based on what Robert Monroe described in terms of the terrain of the afterlife through his astral projections, which then other people at the Monroe Institute were able to replicate, and based on the kinds of accounts that, let's say, Carla Turner got from abductees of being taken to places that were not just like, like space alien bases. There were places where the soul was being handled as some kind of an informational matrix and or energy source.
John Lear would say that there's like a soul catcher on the moon, but he was kind of crazy and would say a lot of stuff that, probably was BS.
I guess my point is we don't need to I've heard that, by the way. I've heard him talk about it. My point is we don't need to depend on him. Other people have said this. And let me give you one more example of somebody who's described this is, I hope I don't get this name wrong. Scott Turner or Scott Trevor or Scott Turner was a leader of a team of remote viewers. And these are private sector remote viewers, I think, of the kind who offer corporate services and stuff like that, who did a remote viewing on the word moksha. Moksha. So what was in the envelope was moksha, the target they were blind to. Moksha means liberation in Sanskrit. It's like how you get out of the wheel of samsara. And so he does this session with his team. And long story short, he comes back with this horrific account that all of them do. Of course, they're all working the same target, blind to the same target, and they're all doing this independently. And then they compare notes. And they said that you can't achieve moksha because as you try to escape the earth, there's something that grabs you and bends you back toward the earth. Like if you're a ray of light, it's like it bends the light that's your soul back toward the earth, like what do you call them? A lensing effect. And he said it's originating from some celestial body near the earth, and that it is part of a vast machinery of energy extraction, which was set up in our solar system at the end of a war that devastated the solar system. He said that like millions of years ago, there were these horrendous people who wanted to establish this energy harvesting system here and wanted to exploit humanity for this purpose. And there was a rebellion against them, and the conflict was waged across the entire solar system. Now, this is interesting in terms of what we discussed regarding Mars in our first conversation and the apparent devastation of Mars in some kind of a nuclear war, according to Dr. Brandenburg. So Turner and his group said, Turner, Trevor, Scott, whatever, this remote viewer, it's going to be in my new book, Thanosis. But you can find it. Google remote viewing moksha. People were so disturbed by the video that the guy took it down. He has all his other videos up, but he took this one down, but other people uploaded it to other sites. And so he says the rebels who wanted to preserve human freedom and self-determination didn't want humans to be harvested and exploited this way. They lost the war. And ever since then, we've been inside basically this prison where we are spiritually manipulated and harvested for our energy.
When we originally described this site, it's a fence or a grid around a place. This acts as a barrier. It collects and traps people, things, or objects. This is actually an innocent planet that is being used in an unintended way. And this meters the flow and acts as a checkpoint and an access point for an external force. One viewer described it as similar to hocus pocus in a way of its energetics that the viewer wasn't familiar with. And it's occurring on a crowded planet. It's a deliberate function that acts as a cage. People have been dispersed here, and a form of perverted injustice is occurring. A third viewer described it as a large naturally formed object, like a planet, that acts as an animal pen. This is a refugee camp tucked away out of sight, and a magnetic force. It stirs, agitates, and it works in a cylindrical manner, like clockwork over a long expanse of time. In my session, my work described a planetary system that's extremely crowded and jammed. Ghostly voices are flooding into this place, and it's incredibly harrowing for them. It's a bone-chilling experience. As a viewer, when I remote viewed this, I had descriptions that it made me upset in the session. It elicited contempt for what was going on at the site. But the activity at the site was this concept of a net that's been spun, and it's an operation of catch and release on a grand scale. So there's a massive grid that exists around this planet, and it acts as a checkpoint, a waypoint or a rest stop where souls are drained, and then that in turn energizes something else.
That's so depressing. I mean, is there any aspirational streak within that? Do you believe in God? Do you think
I believe in Prometheus.
Okay.
In other words, the reason that Prometheus has become such a central archetype to my philosophical project is because if you look at the structure of this myth, it encompasses all the major elements of most religious belief systems, but in a way that's empowering to humanity.
There we go. Hey, everyone. Welcome. Glad that you're here. Thanks for being here. It's been a big week for me. I have a lot to say tonight. I've been writing all week. I actually was going to be releasing a video this week. Had it all teed up, ready to go. And I began writing on Saturday evening after the show. Sunday, we had the Zoom. And then shortly thereafter, I began writing some more, and then I couldn't stop. And this continued through the week. And I have for you tonight, let's see, there's going to be about 20 slides that's going to walk us through the human origin theory of the Cassiopaeans, and it is extremely complicated. And that has been my challenge this week, because I have wanted to present this to you guys in a way that's palatable, digestible, realizable, cognizable. And it's difficult to do that with something as all-encompassing as this. And so what I'm going to try to do tonight is just read off, like I said, about 10 or so slides, and we'll have a discussion, find out what questions you guys have, and then we'll continue the study. I have, at the end of the slides, I have a section on Lucifer, how that relates to the human collective, and how that was twisted. And that's a very difficult challenge to elucidate, and I'm going to be attempting that tonight. So it's been really heavy. It's been a really heavy week, full of joy and happiness, of course, but when you're going over stuff like this that is so different than the way that we all have understood ourselves, and it does such a good job at linking so many things together. I mean, don't we all get tired of hearing just these little pieces of our history? You know, we hear these little tiny segments, and you try and relate all these little segments, and you try to think through what's going on within these little segments. And until you get a concept that can actually integrate all of those little aspects, you still continue to sort of fish in waters without any real structure to what you're doing. You're just sort of casting your net and catching what's out there. And this mythology offers an organization, offers a stability that really is not on offer by basically any other mythology that I've ever heard, because all other mythologies I've ever considered have always been a smaller view than what this Cassiopaean picture presents. And so that's why I've worked very hard this week to try and find a semblance for you, because it's really easy when something as complicated as this begins to be explained. It's really easy to jump to a conclusion. It's really easy to hear something and then immediately relate it to what you already know and assume, and then judge that whatever you hear by your preconceived notion. And so what I've tried to do is blend my explanation in such a way that it doesn't ever just leave you, and that there's a semblance. And even though you may not fully grasp what is said in the slide when I read it, you're going to grasp it when we get further down a couple of slides, and then you'll be like, okay, I can relate these things, because it's one of those things that has details in the front end that you really don't get in the actual story until the back end. And trying to make sense of that for a person who's never heard these concepts and involve other worlds and involve alien races and involve a history that you've never been exposed to, it is a real challenge. So I'm going to do my best tonight. Let's go to comments and let's see how you guys are doing. I saw something interesting. This thing here, I want to see what you guys think of this. So what happens when I do this? Are you guys seeing what I'm seeing? Oh, it does. It moves with me. Does that move with me? Yes. Okay. So this is interesting. I'm able to see. Now let me try to see if I can make this taller. Yeah. Okay. So what I'm going to try to do here with this little feature I found tonight is try and stay right in line with you guys. Next week, or the week after, we're going to introduce Super Chat so that people have a way of ensuring that they get their questions answered with a Super Chat, which I think is going to be about $5. And then that way, nobody has to feel like they're being left out. If you have a real pressing question, I can get to it. But what I'm going to try to do here is I'm going to try for you guys to see, because I just discovered this today when I was opening up. I'm going to try to see and let you guys see right what I'm looking at, so we're all together. So if I don't move, it starts to move on its own. So I'm going to go to the bottom where it says new comments. Does it show? Okay, yeah, I'm at Catlin Kiss. Hi, Catlin. Okay. Hi, greetings, Christopher. Greetings. All my life. All right, where is this? Here. All my life, I've somehow innately felt that I, as a human being, was unnaturally part of the rest of the animal kingdom. I'm looking forward to seeing. I am telling you, Christopher, you're going to hear concepts tonight that are going to open doors of mind that you've never opened. Okay. Let's see what else we got here. Hey, Scooter, what's going on, buddy? Happy birthday, Earth Day check. Thank you so much. Awesome. Fortune, you know me too well. It's all good. I have heavy material tonight. Happy birthday, Chuck. Nice. I like that. Trip over drip. Nice. Very nice. Yeah. You're sensitive, Fortune. You're good. I appreciate that. Yes, we do. We discussed Lucifer today. I am going to explain it to you guys today. Hey, what's going on, 9mm? It's good to see you, buddy. Glad to see you. What is this? And then I'll get to Churchill. Happy birthday, Chuck. Thanks for the Hobbit style of gifting us. You're welcome. You're welcome. Churchill, according to C's, is a descendant of Jesus, says Laura Knight. If you know history, Churchill was a sick, twisted, drunken, murderous psycho, not Jesus' descendant. No way. Yeah, see, this is where P.W. Collins. This is where we get into interpretation, and I am going to do a good job tonight interpreting this for you. I'm going to do a better job, I think, than most, because I've really got a semblance to what I'm going to share with you guys tonight. What is going on, Bob? It is great to see you, my friend. Yeah, it's important because we've only been given very small perspectives. This one is a much bigger perspective, and I'm going to show it to you. What's going on, Gnostic Shaman? It's good to see you, my friend. Can't wait for Awakening Day. We are in it, my friend. Clueless, thanks for being here, buddy. I appreciate you, friend. Nice. Thank you for the happy birthday wishes. I appreciate that. I turned 56 yesterday, believe it or not. All good. Here we go. There is a lot of details we're talking about tonight. I tell you, it's going to be a big deal. Am I staying on the screen with you guys? Am I looking at what you guys? Let me look at and see. So there's Catelyn. So I'm not seeing Catelyn, what I'm looking at right now. Like what I see right now is this from Fortune. What is going on, Clintrons? It's good to see you. Thanks, Mal. I appreciate that, love. Yeah, we're going to clarify the situation tonight. Evening from, what is this? Guelph. I like saying that word though. Guelph. Guelph. I like that. It's a big deal, Michelle. It's a big deal tonight. I've got heavy duty stuff for y'all tonight. It's going to give you pause. That might be a bit reason why you sense a bit of subtlety from me. Guelph. Guelph. I wish I knew what that was. Switzerland. Nice. Do you guys know? Check this out. So this week, I meet with my team every week on Tuesdays. And Pete, who is the genius that's behind my website, because I don't know anything about websites, Pete showed me this screen that showed all the different nations around the world that have tuned into my website or have seen what's going on there. Do you guys know who number 3 was? Now, it's obvious number 1 was the United States. Number 2 was Canada. Can you guys guess what number 3 was? Can you guess that? No cheating. Anybody who's at the meeting, don't comment because you saw it. Can you guess? Guelph, Ontario, Canada. Nice. Can you guess? Australia? No, but I love Australia. I love Australia. Yeah, I wish. Australia was number 4. So close, though. You guys know me too well because I love the Australians so much. You guys love me too. You guys know me so well. No. Though it was on there, believe it or not. It was on there. You guys won't believe. You guys won't believe who it was. What nation it was. Switzerland, England, New Zealand. These are all fantastic guesses. I think England was 5th, if I'm not mistaken. New Zealand. No, but I love New Zealand. That's where that's the Isle of Man. That's where they have that awesome motorcycle race every year that I send. No, but China was on there. Actually had some folks from China on there. Russia's another good guess. This is great. I've really got you guys stumped. France. No, close. France is close. Not Africa. Africa was on there. Not Iran. I actually had one person from Iran. India was on there. Look at this. This is great. I've got you guys some. It is near Sweden. Yep. It's near France. It's really close to France. Spain, there it is. You nailed it. Errant Jane nailed it right there. Errant Jane, you got it. Where did she go? Wait a minute. Where did it go? Here, you deserve this. Show it. Yeah. Spain. Can you believe it? I was blown away. I was shocked. Spain, yeah. Spain. Hey, Matt, what's going on, buddy? What is going on? Look at you guys naming all these places. Awesome. Norway was on there too. I might be mixed up in where Isle of Man is. Sorry, I thought it was on New Zealand. I thought it was on New Zealand, but maybe it's not. I am not good with world geography. Trust me on that one. Yeah, man. Heck yeah. Are you in Spain? Heck yeah. If you're in Spain, heck yeah. It is close to France. Isn't France right next to Spain? Maybe I'm wrong. Like I said, I'm no good with geography. If you get me in front of a map, I'll show you where Spain is. I thought it was right there next to France. Maybe I'm wrong. I was close. Yeah, you were. Yeah, I am excited about tonight. And wow, you really are in Spain. Heck yeah. Shout out to all the Spaniards. Heck yeah. Thanks for your support. Thanks for being here. Really appreciate it. I know I do. I know. Why did you say, okay, wait a minute. Why did you say I suck when Spain borders France, Portugal? Why did you say I sucked at geography? Because I was right. That's what I thought. I thought France bordered Spain. All good. Okay. Well, okay, so I'm going to take these down because it's distracting to me and I'm trying to read. And because what we have to cover today is so heavy, what I'm going to do is I'm going to begin reading and I'll read through. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to read through not all the slides, but until we get to a break point. And then I'm going to stop for questions and we'll go from there. Now, please, on the front end, before I even start this, you guys really, really, really have got to remove from your head your preconceived assumptions and notions about the forms and figures in history that have been handed to you by authorities. And you and I both know very clearly that the authorities have never had your good interest in mind, okay? They've never, ever had your good interest in mind. So there's no story that we've heard that to date, in my opinion, that's been 100% accurate. And I'm not saying that the Cassiopaean theory that I'm reading to you tonight about human origin is right. Okay? I'm saying that it already encompasses all the stuff, the precursors to humanity that you are thinking of, like Atlantis, Lemuria, all of the high technology societies 40,000 years ago, 50,000 years ago, 100,000 years ago. All these societies that we see have been wiped out by floods, cataclysms, all stuff. Societies that were much higher technology than us. I just want you guys to know, this is going to be the first red pill for you tonight. I just want you guys to know, those have all been us. You ready for the kind of holy what? Atlanteans are that's us. Lemurians, that's us. That's us. We look like this. Or something very similar. Okay? Those aren't aliens, civilizations. That's what I'm trying to tell you. Now there have been infiltrations from aliens, but here's another big red pill for you. We have been in a breeding, basically a genetic altering, breeding and exploiting program for 309,000 years. So any theory that you have that goes back 30,000, 50,000, 100,000, 200,000, it's within that breeding program, the Anunnaki, the visiting of the foreign aliens to this planet that supposedly made us. That's not true. That was part of one of the breeding programs. That happened. but it was just part and parcel to the ongoing exploitation program to basically work us over as a species. Okay? Take that as an idea. Don't take that as fact. Just take that as an idea. I have a theory tonight that encompasses that actually integrates fully Atlantis, Lemuria, the Kentex, the planet between Mars and Jupiter. It involves the Venus moving into our atmosphere, the Mars being wiped out because other species have been or used to have Mars completely colonized. I've got the reason why the Nordic species is all white with blue eyes. I've got biological explanation for that. Let's get going. You guys are probably shut up, Chuck. Let's go. Okay, here we go. Let's go to media assets. Now, first, what we're going to do is we are going to cover, add stage. We're going to cover loosh. Now, that's what you guys need to understand. All of this is for the sake of loosh, okay? That's the underlying theme, common ground, anchor point, okay, is loosh, okay? If you want to understand what has happened on this planet going back over 300,000 years, loosh, okay? That's the anchor. So put your anchor in there. So here we go. I'm going to read 2 slides about loosh, and then we're getting into it. Loosh is the term used in the Cassiopaean material for the subtle, emotional, psychic energy generated by third density beings, primarily humans. Through intense emotional experiences, fourth density, STS, that's service to self, we studied that last week, beings feed on loosh as their primary form of substance. Like humans consume physical food, typically higher densities feed on lower densities up to 4D, okay? 5D, 6th, and 7th, as you know from last week, are not feeders. Okay, feeders are 4D down. It functions as a hyperdimensional fuel or life force nectar that sustains them and powers their activities. Okay, like I said, everything's about loosh. Loosh is produced most efficiently by negative emotions. Fear, think about our society now. Fear, terror, anxiety, tension, grief, anger, despair, suffering, conflict, and trauma. Consider the conditions they have kept society. Non-physical emotional pain like worry, chronic fear, psychological torment, relentless hopelessness yields far more usable, long-lasting loosh than brief physical pain, which ends with the body. That's the first thing you guys need to be aware of. The best kind of loosh is not the stuff that goes on at rituals. Okay, that's a high. That's right. That's not the best substance. What they're looking for is the long-term delivery. That's the highest quality, densest loosh. The stuff that comes out of your daily worry, the stuff that comes out of your daily anxiety, the stuff that comes out of your daily frustrations, the stuff that comes out of your asking permission, seeking approval, and expecting your proof, the things that disempower you long-term, okay? That's the stuff. That's what they want, okay? The ritual's great for them, meaning the ritual's great for loosh, yeah. They get their high, yeah. All that's part of it, yeah. But that's not the real gold for them. The real gold is an overriding, all-encompassing, constant negative pressure, negative energy. Spikes are fine. They're looking for the long term, okay? So this is why this slide reads like that. Despair, suffering, conflict, trauma. These are things that are just long drawn out. Trauma is something you live with daily, dealing with it. Okay? Non-physical emotional pain like worry, chronic fear, psychological torment, relentless hopelessness yields far more usable, long-lasting loosh than brief physical pain, which ends with the body. The purpose of the system, the entire 3D control matrix, wars, divisions, trauma-based events, media-induced fear cycles, personal dramas, etc., is engineered through scarcity, oppression, to maximize loose production. This makes Earth an energy farm for 4D STS entities, like a cornfield is an energy farm for the human being. Think of a cornfield being burned. A ton of energy is released all at once. But if you harvest that cornfield and then utilize it for different products and foods and needs, right, you stretch out its density over a usable space for a long period of time. That is exactly the picture of Earth and humans. Exactly. The goals of a normal organic farmer growing corn in the yard are the same principal goals of the loose farm that's here. This is one of the patterns that's going to show you the deeper insight, the deeper truth. The way nature naturally works. I'm going to show you in the human origin theory, the way nature actually works, the way we observe, live, and utilize is the same exact patterns that the 4D uses to utilize and harvest us. Same patterns, same principles. Okay, same. Okay, name a mythology that works like this. Okay, I'm going to keep going so you guys will understand the heaviness of this. How it's harvested, loosh is harvested through abductions, body implants, dimensional manipulation, like you manipulating a house of rats with pheromones, and orchestrated global or personal events that keep humanity in a state of emotional reactivity, downward spiraling, and turmoil. The energy is siphoned off at the moment of strong emotional spikes, fighting, harming, stealing, drug highs, mass casualties in wars, or economic disasters are all good examples of basically any kind of loosh. Loosh, in short, is an emotional nectar that STS beings consume to maintain and expand their power. And like I explained last night, just like you eat meat, fish, vegetables, fruits, and so on and so forth to sustain your 3D body, this flesh and bone that you fill and animate, again, take that exact same pattern and just apply that to 4D. Same pattern. They eat spiritual energy, not physical products. They eat the energy that comes out of those products as they are used, expended, drawn upon. Okay, that's the energy they eat. Okay, they're not as interested in the flesh and bone. That's for their clones. That's for the grays. That's for things that actually have a kind of biology. A kind of biology that is physical in nature. But a spirit isn't interested in adrenochrome. It's interested in the stuff, the energy that comes out of adrenochrome, the stuff you can't see. And that's why, here again's a pattern, that's why the Satanists drink adrenochrome. They're eating the physical form of the spiritual energy that the demon is eating. Do you see the cohesiveness? Do you see the connectedness? Eating energy to basically exploit, that's what you are eating. So I'm taking the energy of that living being, that living plant, that living fruit, that living fish, and as a 3D entity, me, you, we consume that energy. Okay, and so loosh is what comes out of that fish when it's caught and it's panicked and it's dying. It comes out of the gazelle when it's running from the lion and it can't escape. It comes out of the plant when it has an infection and it is suffering and dying. It's exuding loosh, because all of these things are spiritual energy. All these things are related to God, source. Everything's tied together. And so it's not just a simple, okay, the body dies, that's it. No, there's all kinds of expressions that come out of organisms, of living life. Electromagnetics makes this easy to see. And again, here we see a common pattern. You can't see electromagnetics, but they definitely are affecting your life constantly, namely gravity, namely color. Okay? Again, any ontology you take on, it really is wonderful when it fully integrates and dances with everything at every level. And what you're going to find in this Cassiopaean mythology is that you're going to find these resonation points that you don't even have to try to mesh. You don't even have to think about it. These things just like, oh my God, that's just how death expresses in the next D, the next density. That's just how a soulless expression expresses itself, like an OP. In here, the earth. Natural just connections, okay? Here we go. Not rocket science. You guys can follow this. Loosh functions like a storable resource in the hyperdimensional 4D system. It is collected, processed, and accumulated by 4D STS beings in the larger loose grid structure rather than being consumed instantly the moment it is produced. You see? What you guys need to understand is 4D STS is patient. They are patient beings. They are outside the implicity of time. So time isn't an issue for them. It's not a concern like it is for you. Okay? So they're very patient. That's why a span of 309,000 years to an STS 4D being is just nothing really. But to you and me, that's an unfathomable amount of time. Unfathomable. It's hard enough just to imagine Atlantis a few 10,000, 20,000 years ago, 30,000 years ago. The Younger Dryas, by the way, what knocked out Atlantis. Anyways, I'll talk about that in a minute. 4D entities are very patient, and they advantage their timeless existence by hiding the true nature of their action under 10,000 or even 300,000 year patterns that no 3D being picks up on in a 100-year lifespan. This is why your life lengths were shortened. Follow? Nobody, no society can survive long enough to pick on, excuse me, to pick up on the larger operation at work, you see? And that's why the mythologies we have been shrunk. Think about the Bible. The Bible has a mythology that's about 6,000, 10,000 years old, right around in there. Maybe not even that, like 8,000. Okay? It's a very small mythology, very small picture. It's only picked a very small portion. But if you're in a 100-year lifespan, man, the Bible seems like a long time. It talks about leaders in there that were around for thousands and thousands of years. And that seems like, and it is, to hear us human in 3D, it is a long time. You see, but in that 4D realm, it's not. And so when you build a mythology based on your time frame here, and you think your time frame is 10,000 years, you can see how you're never going to figure out the bigger plan. You're looking at a space of like 2% of 100% of the picture. How are you going to get a picture looking at just 2%? That's why it's so funny when you talk to someone who believes in a young Earth. You're talking to someone who thinks that the Earth is only 6,000 years old. Okay, just how much mind expansion is going to be going on in that person, right? Just how big is their world going to be, thinking that no, dude, everything started in the Garden of Eden, bruh. You know, how big is that reality going to be, you see? And so this is very important to understand, in that these 4D entities are not in the time frame that you are. So very long spans like this are nothing to them. They're fully fluid. The Earth is a farm operating in a multi-millennia crop rotation via global wipeout. This is going to tie into the cataclysms. I'm going to explain this to you. It's a harvest and stockpile operation in progress. Energy is refined, pushed into negative rather than positive, obviously, at the ground level. And they've been doing that since it was just 2D here, and then siphoned off through a planetary capture system conducted by the moon, or in our case, like the moon on Endor in Star Wars. Perfect picture of it. Stored and later drawn upon as needed over time to feed the galactic network. Now, very much like grain in a silo or charge in a battery. To scale this, each individual is like a carbohydrate inside a wheat grain, locked inside a silo, and tied into a network that links the system, that's how captured we've been, into their energy economy. So people are locked into the 4D energy economy, like what happened in the Matrix. Again, a pattern that's common. People are locked into a system that they don't even realize they're in. That's the key. That you don't even realize that you're in. And so because you don't realize it, you're not looking for it, you're not aware of it, and then as a matter of fact, it's controlling you and you don't know it. That's what an egregore is. That's what a religion is. That's what a dogma is. It's a controlling agency. It's a mind parasite that controls you because you buy into it. This is your complicity with the capture system. That's how you're complicit. That's how your free will, your sovereignty is usurped. It's done through this 4D magic, this ability to put you in a reality that you're not, without you knowing it. And so you comply. You stay on the farm. You never leave, and you fight anyone that tries to get you out because you're locked in, just like the Matrix. You're locked in. You're locked in. And through fear, anxiety, they keep you locked in. See, this is their magic. This is why you guys need to understand how capture we were. Our 3D economy is run on secret blood money, namely adrenochrome and slavery. Just as 4D is run on a secret loose-based economy, namely slavery, scarcity, and mass casualty events. And you can see how these things work together. Now, here we're going to take the big step. Okay, this is right. I really hope I don't lose y'all. Okay, follow along. The universe is a garden for individuated consciousness spawn. Follow? It's a garden for individuated consciousness spawn, experience, expansion, and growth. The point of the universe is, this is my suggestion, is to introduce, employ, and experience consciousness at every level of density. Okay, that's your divine right, you could say. The more expanded or dense your consciousness, the more meaning and point your life will carry. Okay, common sense. You grow into a higher consciousness being that eventually transcends the 3D realm, like a caterpillar eventually escapes the ground. And again, here's another pattern: metamorphosis. In the spaces between realms, you can metamorphose between the realms. And we know this is true because we see it happening in animals in this 3D reality. We see animals, namely a little caterpillar, that metamorphoses, turns into liquid, and then becomes a solid again. It metamorphoses right in front of you. And 30 days later, the darn thing hops out and it doesn't even have to be on the ground anymore. It is transcended. You guys need to understand this is real. These aren't fake things that come out of psychology and philosophy. Transcendence is real. It's a thing. Okay? And you can see it everywhere. You can see when a snake sheds its skin or a crab sheds its skin. It's changing form. When a hermit crab switches shells, right? It's changing its form, appearance. When an octopus changes its color, its form, it's metamorphosing. Folks, this is you. Okay? But you don't metamorphose in the body sense like a caterpillar. You metamorphose in the spiritual sense, in the spiritual awakening, awareness. And the way you know this is real is because you see it happening everywhere. You see it happening in people when they have a car accident, when they lose a spouse, when a child dies. Their entire existence changes. When a person is traumatized, when they're abused, their entire emotional structure changes, transposes. Okay? I'm trying to show you that we are in a realm like that. We're in a thin realm like that, that can shift orientation really damn fast on multiple layers. So you need to, as a human being, start getting fluid with that. You are not in a finite space. You are in an illusion that is transposing. What do you think going from 3D to 4D means? What do you think the Great Awakening is? Transposition, transposing, moving from one space to another cohesively, organically, naturally. The catastrophe that's coming is not the ending of the earth. It's the transposing, the transmogrifying of the earth and its occupants. Think big. Get outside of world-ending assumptions and start thinking in terms of expansion, growth, magnificence. Both of these things are cataclysms. They're just very different in their appearance. Okay? Bigger world I'm trying to show you. Metamorphosis is the human emphasis and point. The meaning of the universe can be seen as a metamorphosing package, instructing individual experience of consciousness expansion over a millennia of lifetimes and forms. That is you, my friend. We are an expanding energy that self-employs and self-organizes in a way personally understood to opportune growth. That's why as your mind expands, you expand. You densify, expanding deeper and deeper into consciousness. And you see this everywhere in the universe, okay, folks? You see the universe complexifying constantly, don't you? All the time. Creating supernovas, creating more stars, creating more galaxies, planets, self-organizing, spinning into resonance. I mean, you can just look at it, and the whole darn thing is a growing organism, just like you. And black holes eat just like you eat. And black holes expend just like you expend. Okay, planets come and they go. Stars come and they go. Now you see it, now you don't. Just like you. You're here and now you're not. Now you see it, now you don't. You come in different forms. Stuff comes out of the black hole and that dust compresses into planets, stars, galaxies, all kinds of different forms. The pattern is, it's just obvious you're a part of the pattern. It's obvious. And thinking of it in any smaller space is to discount it. Which is why it's so important to have an ontology, an understanding, an understanding of the world that encompasses all these different patterns fluidly, cohesively, without your having to try to make it fit. That's why in-groups and out-groups don't work for an ontology. They're not trying to bring everything together. They're not trying to allow everything to grow. They're trying to force everything together. And we're here to grow. Do you see? Okay, I'm trying to get you in this bigger picture. You are an expanding energy that self-employs and self-organizes in a way understood to opportune growth, densifying, expanding deeper into consciousness. Metaphorically, we are protagonists in a dream of God called the universe. This ties into the Cassiopaean theory. God's consciousness is God's consciousness, as the Cassiopaeans put it. That's what the universe is. We are God's imagination. The universe is God's consciousness. We are part and parcel of God's consciousness through God's imagination. That is what your imagination is. That's why you invent, become, bring about the impossibility, the miracle. It's because you are God in motion. You are God made manifest, and you do miracles called ideas, and you create worlds. You create other eternal beings, namely your kids. You have this power. That power is in you, and it is just like the universe. And just like the universe births bodies called planets, called stars. Okay, the earth peoples. Okay, it brings about bodies, humans, forms, dinosaurs, all kinds of stuff. This is the bigger picture. Everything is generating more and more. That's why an STS, a service to self, goes against the natural expanding principle of the universe and you. And if you integrate into a self-consuming lifestyle and life, you will die there. You don't expand, you don't grow. And when you go against the principles of nature, it's like going against the rapids. If you go against the principles of the universe, growth, expansion, complexity, you are going against the rapids. You're going against the rapids of the soul. It's all the same thing, just bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And the bigger your mind, the bigger your consciousness, the wider your awareness, the more appropriate you will become, the more efficient you will become in utilizing your energy, in knowing who you are and self-empowering yourself. Do you see? This is all in it. The stage is your life experience. The point is to live experiences, learn from them, and grow. Just like a dream, you are not here to carry out a plan or follow a plot. You observe and you learn, you die and you come back, and you keep doing this refining process over and over and over and over again. And you become a bigger and bigger and bigger consciousness. That's why they made the loosh farm, to make you forget when you die. So there's no growth. We'll talk about that. There's no potential reached. You die, you go through a forgetful shock, and then you come back to the planet and you have forgotten everything. That was to fully extract all the potential that you developed over your life, bring you back to zero and grow again. Like you would trim a rose in the fall. You trim back the plant in the way that you want it to grow, and then the next season it will grow in the way that you have formed it. This is exactly the way the universe works. You grow in the way that the universe, your environment, informs you. And as you're cut down repeatedly over and over again, you grow into a more and more refined shrub, a more and more refined planet, a more and more refined human being, a more and more refined life. Do you get the point? Do you see what's happening? Do you see what's happening? Refinement, 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 refinement. That is your life. So having anxiety about dying or having anxiety about challenge, do you see how that just stops you? Because the point is for you to grow, to be refined. And refining hurts. It's painful, but it's necessary for growth in this 3D reality that we're in. So to be appropriate to this 3D reality I'm in right now, I learn to accept challenges without anxiety. I learn to accept a different world that I'm used to fluidly and lucidly, so that I stay nonplussed, so I'm not anxious, so that I am relative and present to the world that I'm in, not reactive and taken and plussed about everything, filling with anxiety. Do you see? You're a fluid creature. You flow with the changes, just like the earth flows with the changes. It just goes with it. That's your role. Go with it. Okay. You observe and learn. You came here to have your own experience and learn from that experience in an illusion of separation, a dream. That's what you're in right now. Okay. That's why you came here, to be in this dream and learn from that illusion. And just like a little sapling or sprig, you came to grow. Okay. That's your point. You came to grow. That's why you're here. Expand your consciousness. And you only get this opportunity in this form one time. So what happens if you jeopardize or compromise this opportunity, right? You compromise your ability to grow. It's okay. No problem. That's fine. If you want to do that, that's fine. That's your choice, meaning how you spend and do your life. The point being, you're only going to be in this form one time. So make the most of it. Make the most of it. Be as relative to your environment as you can, because that's your environment to grow and learn. Yeah. Common sense responsibility, friend. And just like a little sprig, you came to grow, and only you get this opportunity in this form one time. The best way you can honor being a drop of God in the ocean of God is to be fully aware, obviously. Taking this into account should help loosen your grip on your origin and the meaning of life, because you are a dream within a dream, and dreams have no plan or destination, and their meanings are sketched or identified. They're flowing and changing. But no matter the dream's content, its metaphors always offer a deeper insight than the surface forms. And that's obvious to everyone here. What is in your past does not matter from this larger dream perspective, and this is what you need to remember as you look at this very difficult to accept Cassiopaean mythology. What is in your past does not matter from this larger dream perspective. And this is why months ago I gave you that example of, if I have a child that's an orphan and a child that is not an orphan, are either of these children more valuable than the other? Is the orphan more valuable than the child that knows their parents, or is the child that knows their parents any more valuable than the orphan? No. No. Their intrinsic value is equal. Is one flower more important or valuable than another flower? No, you might like one more than the other, but their intrinsic value is equal. Just like you might like the personality of one of the kids or the other kids, but that doesn't change their value. This is the universe. The form is irregardless of the value. Everything has inherent, innate value. Okay? So this is one of the first perspectives, first anchor points, along with the loosh idea, is value is not based on form. So what you see, don't let it trick you. Don't let it fool you, because what you see is maya, an illusion. So we're to take these forms and observe and learn, just like when you wake up from a dream. You don't run around the house screaming, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, if you want to learn anything. If the dream freaked you out, if you want to understand, you have to remain calm. You have to remain lucid. And you have to remain objective so that you're not taken by the form. You're not afraid of something that maybe looks a bit weird or is different than you expected. That's part and parcel to dreams, folks. Okay? We're living in a dream. You're looking at illusions. It's the same space. It's all in your mind. Don't be confused. Don't make it more complicated than it already is, because it's already pretty complicated. Stay on point. Stay relative to your environment so that you can grow. So that you can grow. That's why the plant goes towards the light, because light gives its food. It's relative to its environment. So where there's light, that plant is going to go. Think of that same picture in regards to knowledge, the gut mind. Where the knowledge and gut mind is, where when you go there, that's where you're going to grow. That's your food. The gut mind, knowledge, light, that is your food. And the plant is just a metaphor of that truth. The plant grows from light, you grow from light, which is knowledge. That's going to have a quirky tie into Lucifer, which we're going to get into later in the show. Okay. Taking this into account should help. Okay, so I read that. Because you are a dream within a dream, and dreams have no plan or destination, and their meanings are sketched or identified. But no matter the dream's content, its metaphors always offer a deeper insight than the surface forms. What is in your past does not matter from this larger dream perspective. Life, a dream, is to be celebrated. Life is to be celebrated. Okay? Not loathed, not feared. It is to be accorded, not forced or leveraged. Okay? It doesn't need to be atoned, in other words. Okay? Nothing's wrong. Your existence is a celebration. This isn't purgatory, it's a paradise. It's hard to see that. I get it. But the more you understand, the more you realize that it is a paradise that has been captured. Okay? So you need to understand that. Just like when you rescue that little child from the tunnels and all the abuse, there's going to be effect in that child. Psychological effect. There's nothing you can do to stop it. That child's affected because they've been tortured. They've been abused. So you can't just be around them like you are with another child. You got to be very sensitive and careful because there's a lot going on there. Okay. Is the child beautiful? Of course. Does the child have impossible value? Of course. Nobody's questioning that. That's not an issue. Okay. You're the same way. You're the same picture. We have been abused. We have been traumatized. We have been completely thrown in the gutter and stomped on. Okay? We are affected by that. Your perspective is affected by that. Understand, friend. Know who you are. You're affected by your environment, and we have been in a torture chamber. I'm not kidding. Okay? We've been in the press, man. We've been in an extraction, constant extraction situation. I mean, how many of us were circumcised 5 minutes after coming out of mom's womb? Probably 90% of the men say, I was. Okay, that's traumatization, just so you know. That has nothing to do with perfecting. It has nothing to do with helping you. That is an old school, old world Jewish tradition used to traumatize you in the name of God. War is the same thing. It's to traumatize you in the name of God and country. It's not designed to help you. It never was. That's why all wars have been the same side posing the whole damn thing. Okay, we are in an abuse situation. You've got to give yourself room for that, friend. You have got to give yourself the space. Okay, you've got to give yourself the space to understand. I've been really traumatized. I've got some homework to do. I got work to do to recover. I've been traumatized with false beliefs about myself. I've been traumatized with false beliefs about others. I have been I have been trained to be a spiritual racist. I have been trained to be a scientific racist. That's what we all are coming from, okay? And that's nasty stuff. And we picked up bad habits from it, okay? Give yourself room to grow and understand, okay? Especially when you're considering our history. You came to realize a deeper, more dense expansion than any institution can offer, because you are not an institution and you did not come here to obey. Do you follow this? If you need to go back and review these slides, please do. Never let an origin story or dreamt past obscure the truth, who you are, from you, because I can assure you, those who have ruled us, is what I just said, did not tell you the truth of who you are, where you came from, and meaning of life. Okay, you're not a sinner. You didn't come from the Garden of Eden, where they told you came from. And the meaning of your life is not to atone your sins and try and make it through a life of capture. That's not the meaning of your life. That's what they want you to think. Okay, again, as we look at religion, you're going to find out they twisted truth into lies. But you came here to expand, not to obey. Okay, you came here to think for yourself, not think for the institution. Make that clear. You didn't come here to work in a cube. You didn't come here to have your mind put in a cube. You came here to expand. You came here to express your art. You came here to express your true, authentic self and beauty. That's why you're here. You're not here to follow a plan. You're not here to fulfill a plan. Okay, that's belittling of you. Okay, you are here to expand and grow. Let's continue. We have spent some time learning together different twisted forms of the truth told to us about the afterlife, human origin, the identity of God, the meaning of life, and of course, who the enemy is. And all of these have been conjoined and rejoined over many centuries of time, always submitting to the Deshi mythology. And you guys know what the Deshi mythology, that's the local provincial mythology of the society. The local Deshi mythology for the Western world is Christianity. The local Deshi mythology for the Middle East is Islam. The local Deshi mythology for China is Buddhism, okay? And we know this is done to confuse us from the truth while always leaving a strand of truth within the lie to hold the whole ontological mess together. Do you follow? That's why I said there's no such thing as a panacea. There's no such thing as one story fits all. I'm not saying the Cassiopaean story is one size fits all. I'm saying that it fits what we have what we know and what we have learned up until like up through the last 10 years extremely well, especially the stories of the dinosaurs and Atlantis. This was done for the same reason Lemuria, Atlantis, Egypt, and countless other very advanced societies and even planets before us were systematically destroyed. You need to understand that. Were systematically destroyed and erased from existence, because had you known the truth, our ancestors found out and tried to tell you, and we know they tried to tell us. Look at Göbekli Tepe. Look at inside the Egyptian pyramids. They tried to tell us. Okay? Because had you known the truth, our ancestors found out, you would have responded in the same way. You leave and you don't come back. What do you do in a house where you're being the crap, when you're having the crap beat out of you every day? You leave. You leave. What do you do in a situation when you're in a restaurant and you're being served food that's old or poisonous? You leave. You immediately, what do you do when you're in a group of people that are engaging in heinous, terrible activities in business? You leave. You don't stay. Okay. So when people find out, if people find out that we are in this trap, this loosh system, guess what happens? Ain't nobody staying. And guess what has happened since everybody started finding out about what's going on? People look at what's happening. People are loosening more and more from all the egregores, from all the lies that kept us in. It's happening, folks. This isn't a theory. It's happening. Heck, you even have people now that are leaving Christianity, if you can believe it or not. It's unbelievable. You got people that are leaving Islam. They're leaving Mormonism. They're leaving atheism. People are completely leaving. Why are they leaving? Because they're finding out. Doesn't this make it so obvious to you what has been happening? Farmers typically don't want their cattle leaving them. That's your pro tip. So just so you know, the 4D farmers that are farming us, lo and behold, they have the same concern that a regular farmer does, meaning a farmer here on the earth. They don't want their farm like being eaten. They don't want it burned down. They don't want anything happening to it. It's a farm. Okay, and what happens when we all find out that we're being extracted and used? We leave. We leave because we have higher consciousness. We have the ability to know we're captured. That's what a cow doesn't have. A cow doesn't have the cognitive ability to know that it's captured. Do you realize that? It's not spending the day on the farm wondering, how the heck do I get out of here like you would? It's like, well, there's plenty of grass. It's nice, breeze. I mean, there are cows that they've got just down the road. My neighbors have cows. They're the happiest campers in the world, man. They got great food. They're out in the pasture land all day hanging out. They're put in the barn, and they're warm and everything during the winter because the farmer takes care of them. They're loving life. They're loving life. Okay, that's good enough. Okay, but that's not good enough for us because we're higher consciousness. It's not good enough. Eating in a cage ain't good enough. Eating Chateaubriand and anything you want in a cage ain't good enough. It's not going to satisfy you. That's why a world of self-consumption and eating all the things the world's offer you doesn't satisfy you, because it's not why you came here. You certainly came to experience this stuff, but that's not why you came here. That's just a bonus round. Continuing. Now, farmers work with what are called plant phenotypes. Now, this is when we get into our history here. And these are positive and negative characteristics of a particular type of plant, traced through known parenting planners. Any of you that are farmers already know this. Sort of like brothers and sisters from the same parents. And farmers will pick, okay? I'm going to pick the biggest cows if I'm a cow farmer. I'm going to pick the biggest chickens if I'm a chicken farmer. I'm going to pick the biggest buds on my weed plants if I'm a cannabis farmer, okay? Obvious. Okay. So farmers, when they're out in the field, they spot in their field and gardens. Sorry, I jumped here. And farmers will pick exceptional phenotypes that they spot in their field and gardens to use for creating new lines of seeds that carry genetics more conducive for the environment their farm is specializing. Now, understand this is important in regards to plant biology. The farmer is doing that because as time goes on, different insects and different pathogens attack the farm. Just like, again, here we go, layers of the same pattern, just like the flu. And every year there are different strains of flu sickness, of germs that permeate the society automatically as a part of nature. And so what happens is you have certain people that have better antigens to that virus, to that flu, the germ, okay? And they're better at fighting it off, okay? And this is how they help the collective in overcoming the disease, because they've got an immune system that's good at fighting off the flu, which is why some people get the flu and some people don't, which is why some plants get sick and some plants don't. It's all in keeping with this philosophy of picking phenotypes. And a farmer will find that plant that's thriving in the midst of plague and will know, okay, this thing has got special characteristics that the other ones don't have. I'm going to make seeds off that plant. It's got phenotype in it that is it's worthy for what I'm doing here on my farm. Relative to me right here on this place, right in this location on the planet, it's going to be totally different than a dude that's down in SoCal or a gal that's in Europe. Everybody's got their own pathogens they're dealing with. That's why my gardening technique, I'll teach you someday, adjusts for your location. You make it to adjust location. I'll show you guys how to do all that. All right. So what has been happening is, and this is going to tell you what the genetic decoding and encoding that's been going on, what they have been doing to us over the last 300 years, is they've been finding phenotypes that they're looking for. They're using culling systems to find the weakest ones of us so that they can be programmed. The lowest consciousness, the worst of us, to find those and then utilize those energies, 3D bodies, as access points for 4D. So like George Soros. George Soros is a low consciousness individual, very powerful, very aware, but very low frequency. Very powerful frequency, loud lower frequency, but very unaware of the bigger notion. He's a self-consumer. He's STS. And so he is a bot for the larger harvesting operation going on off planet. And so Soros gives direct access, the whole political world gives direct access to the loosh fruits that are on the ground, that are around doing their thing. Because the 4D entities are spirits, they have to work through 3D bodies, clones, bots, OPs to carry out the loosh program. So what happened with the Anunnaki and this whole story you're giving about gold mine? No, these are genetic changes they're making, and extraterrestrials are advantaging the loosh available from the change, mixing us with other DNA to increase the loosh production, meaning our sensitivity, our reactivity, our weaknesses. They're doing the opposite of a corn farmer. A corn farmer is looking for the strengths. The loosh farmer is looking for the weak ones, the ones that have low vibration, low frequency. Soros, Sotero, Clinton, go down the list. All the leaders in Europe, all the leaders that are running all the countries, they're all low vibration, horrible people. Those are the access points. And what you got to understand is, in an expanding consciousness, it's not one day you're 3D, next day you're 4D, next day you're 5D. It doesn't work like that. It works like seasons. Again, layers that pattern. Spring doesn't become summer one day. It's not suddenly summer June 20 because the calendar says it's summer. No. Spring becomes summer. 2D becomes 3D. And there are layers as it goes through the transition. Do you follow? And we are in that same operational state. We're going through epochs of time. We are in one right now called the human exploitation wave. And we've been in that wave for 309,000 years. And we are in the middle right now of what's called a crop rotation. So just like the farmer, every 5, 10, 8 years, whatever his rotation is, he won't plant anything on the farm. He's not going to put any seeds out. That'll put out a bunch of alfalfa and increase the nitrogen. But that's about it. Okay, he's going to let the soil rejuvenate. Let it regrow. This is what the cataclysms are, friend. You're on a loosh farm. And the way you restart the grow with new genetics is you wipe the whole thing out. That's called a cataclysm. And our Earth here is in those. And they happen consistently. That's part of the reason why this planet was chosen to be a loosh farm, because it's in a dynamic atmosphere. This is a dynamic planetary system. Have you noticed? A planet was destroyed and there's now an asteroid belt in our planetary spheres. Folks, that shows you high dynamism. There's a ton of S going on around here. And you guys know there's all kinds of portals, and we're iron-based, which is highly magnetic, highly charged electromagnetic material. And our red is blood with it. Our blood is red with it, friend. We are energy. We are stored energy. We are in a very high energy field. There is a lot going on. There is more to the story than the little picture here on Earth you were handed to keep you a good little loosh producer. Do you understand? Bigger picture. Looking out into the sky, we see different nebulae, and common traits share between them, and yet at the same time, each is different and spawn unique planetary systems within stellar nurseries. Stars are like 3D STO or STS metaphors. Follow now. Here's another pattern I'm going to show you. They go supernova and give up their surface layer. They give up their surface layer. Are you seeing the pattern here in the stars to you? When you die, what happens? You give up your surface layer. You give up your surface layer. You become something else, another bastion of energy. What does the star do? Gives up its surface layer, becomes a surface nova, which creates more stars, which creates nebulae, becomes a black hole. In other words, it collapses into a black hole. What is that? Self-consumption. Self-consumption. A black hole is self-consumption in the perfect picture. And looky there, the universe is doing the same thing that you do. If you begin to self-consume an addiction, you destroy yourself. You destroy everything around you. And what happens with the star that blows its surface layer? This is a service to others. It is giving away its form. It is giving away its material body for the betterment of its environment. What is the bodhisattva? What is the bodhisattva? The one that becomes enlightened and gives that up to be in the world of samsara, to show others, to be the compassionate voice, to shine the light of enlightenment to all the people that are there, that are available. These are I'm telling you guys, this is the miracle of the universe that you're in. It literally reflects your life at every dimension. It is unbelievable. Can you see the direct relationship to us? This is not chance. It is a pattern. It is real. All these patterns reflect a distinguishable commonality. None of them are better or worse than any other any more than you would say one penguin species is better than another, or one type of planet is better than another, or one type or one race of humans is better than another. You would never say one cloud is better than another, or one raindrop is better than another, because value is not based on forms for those who see the deeper truth. And this is how you escape the prison, my friend. Escape the STS. All of these natural characteristics of life in the universe equate a single intrinsic value seen with all patterns, within all the patterns. But each characteristic has a very different expression of that value. Does it not? Does it not? Each of the patterns has a very different expression of that innate value that you share with the tree, with the universe, with the planet. They are just different expressions, costumes, or better still, phenotypes of God at play in the universe. And this is why it doesn't matter that we have been genetically altered. That doesn't change your value. That doesn't lessen your value. Just because we have been changed physically, emotionally, spiritually, we have been messed with, it doesn't change your value. Look at the abused child. They've been abused and tortured and messed with, and it has changed their personality. It has changed them as a person. Are they any less valuable? No. Are you any less valuable intrinsically because you might come from extraterrestrials that genetically modified you? Does that now suddenly make you, no. Doesn't change a thing, because you are the spirit of source, the spirit of God made manifest. So when you find out that your origin story is not what you were told in the Bible, but is actually another story that involves extraterrestrials and off-planet beings, there's no lesser value. There's no change in value. Is there? Are both human beings, the one from Eden, the one from extraterrestrials, aren't they both human beings? Don't we have the same result here? I mean, I'm sitting right here, aren't I? You're sitting right there where you are. We're the result of whatever it was. How does that change your value? It doesn't. Stay in that space as we walk here, folks. It's going to be tough. Our story begins with what the Cassiopaeans called transient passengers that emerged and left the void like pollen emerging and leaving a stamen. This can be cognized as consciousness pollinating the thoughts or dreams of God into the universal space. Shall I read that again? This is pollination at the human entelechy level. This can be cognized as consciousness pollinating the thoughts or dreams of God into the universal space. This pollination could be seen as a way that source's energy or consciousness is precipitated into cognizable reality. So you ask the question, where does consciousness come from? Where does this density that we're experiencing comes from? Okay, it comes from the void. It comes from God. It comes from source. That's your higher consciousness, why you think deeper than a lion. Okay, is precipitated into cognizable reality in the same way your child is like a precipitation of you and your partner. Your natural gifts are a precipitation of your soul. A dog's loyalty is a precipitation of the love of God. This seems how consciousness pollinates, precipitates, and expands in our reality. The thought form called humanity is the human soul phenotype precipitating from the void like pollen flowing into a garden called the universe. This particular garden here on Earth fruits consciousness in a form called human when pollinated with transient passengers or God's consciousness. We, according to the seas, the Cassiopaeans, us in the future, are the result of the pollinating of a human phenotype of God, manifesting our characteristic of consciousness into 3D life and death. That's why we're unique as human beings. We look like we do. We're sensitive like we are. We laugh at the things that we do. It's because that's the human way. That's you're just innate. That's what makes you a human. That's why when you see extraterrestrials, or if you do, or if you hear about extraterrestrials, their behavior is so different than ours. Totally different. Their awareness, what they cognize, what they're concerned about is totally different than ours. And this is all part of your character, which makes you beautiful. You're both, you and the extraterrestrial are both expressions of God in one way or another. You both therefore carry innate value. This is how you find value in everything in the universe without having to equate it to Eden. Do you see? This is how you expand your creation story, and don't just limit it to the earth and the universe created in 7 days. You're starting to think in terms of there actually was no starting day, and that we've actually been here for billions of years, or I should say the universe has. We haven't. We've been here for 309,000 years. Okay. Our take of consciousness is unique to us in the same way the scent or form of a flower is unique to the garden. This points to our deeper value and sense. The why humans are beings and valuable is the same why flowers are valuable beings. Our presence, like the flower, like the planet, like the sunshine, is the miracle, is our sense, and is our value. Who you are and we are a precipitation of source. In the same way a blueberry farm is pollinated by bees to create more blueberries, we come out of the void as a human soul transient passenger and precipitated upon the earth like pollen pollinating a garden. The pollen fills into the flower it matches, and we were matched to create. We were matched to create creatures on the earth who were fitting containers. That's why Bob Lazar said that, who were fitting containers for the human entelechy. That is how we entered into consciousness in 3D. They were lower consciousness beings ready for higher consciousness existence, just like some of you right now are ready for 4D consciousness because you've completely accepted and accorded the world as it is and realized who you are. You see, you're ready. You're ready. You're ready for the Great Awakening. You don't have hangups with religion. You don't have hangups with science. You're not still getting the jab. You're not still believing whatever the evolution or creation story was that was handed to you. You've expanded past that. In other words, you're ready to move forward. You're ready to expand your consciousness. You're ready to find out, well, hey, where did we come from? Where is this all this from? How did this happen? You're ready. You're ready for it. But a person, think about a person who's locked into, say, a political DTS syndrome. Imagine that person. That person, they're not ready for a great awakening that doesn't contain Jesus. They're not ready for that. My dad is that type. He's not ready for a great awakening that doesn't contain Jesus. Same with my mom, same with all my siblings, same with all my friends back in Texas. They want nothing to do with a great awakening that doesn't center on Jesus. Do you follow? So they're not ready for a larger reality than 3D because they want the great awakening to just be a glorified version of the 3D they learned about. They're not ready to grow. They're not ready to expand their consciousness. They want to solidify into the smaller world, smaller projection that religion and science offer them. They're complicit. They're a bot. They're not willing to grow. What does a farmer do with a plant that refuses to expand into its full environment? They're going to replace that plant. Going to replace the plant. And what happens when consciousness has beings that are unwilling to expand? They don't go to 4D, which is what the Great Awakening is. It's this thinning moment where we have the opportunity to go to 4D. You have this opportunity. And right now, there are a bunch of people that don't want that. Fine, you get what you want in the universe, and they're not going to transcend. They don't want to. They don't want a world bigger than Islam. They don't want a world bigger than Christianity. They don't want it. So fine, they're going to stay there. There'll be no consciousness expansion for them. None. And they'll stay here. They'll die unaware, ignorant, and if the trap is gone, they'll go to another tougher planet to learn the hard lesson, or they'll come back to this one. It's their choice. And the Great Awakening is just simply an opportunity, a moment in time that's unbelievable for you to actually be able to pass through the veil, because the veil is thinned, and we're going to get into that. Okay. We as humans are each a seed of consciousness formed from the pollination of source. a body composed of spirit and matter. I mean, are you not? You're composed of spirit and matter. I'm going to throw it together for you right now. This seems to be an enviable characteristic in the 3D and 4D realities. This is why you're so cherished and wanted, and wars were fought over you. It's because we have an enviable characteristic in that we are able to be 100% spirit, which is 4D, while at the same time we're experiencing 3D in a body. We have that capacity. And just so you know, folks, that seems to be pretty unusual in the world or in the universe. Pretty exceptional, which gives an idea why we got so much loosh to give, because we have high potential in us. Enormous amount of source code, enormous amount of source DNA and energy within us. Truth. And you know it. You can feel it. Anybody sensitive and is into yoga and practicing with the chakras is fully aware of this. Okay. We humans are a seed of consciousness formed from... Oh, I didn't read that second part of the first paragraph. Sorry, I skipped that. Okay. Sorry. Okay. Let's go back here. We were matched to creatures on the earth who were fitting containers for the human intellect, so potential. They were lower consciousness beings ready for higher consciousness existence. We therefore, according to the Cassiopaeans, are a seeded consciousness carried here by seventh density winds. Okay, that's how it works. Pollination. So out from the void, out from the impossibility, what we can't comprehend, comes the seed of God's imagination in a form that can take in the biology that is the universe. Okay, and that there were beings that were ready and present on the earth, prepared to move into 3D reality. They were high 2D consciousness beings, namely Sasquatch. Okay, oriented to the animal consciousness. Ready, whether genetically modified or naturally, ready for the next step, just like people right now are ready to take the step into the Great Awakening to a higher consciousness. You're ready. You're ready for that form. And that was the same thing, same again, the repeated pattern. Here we go again. That was the same thing that was going on here. Same thing. Same thing. And the bodies that were here were ready. We're ready. Just like certain of you are ready right now. Okay. And like pollen, it fills the area, and it took in these beings. And we humans are each a seed of that consciousness from the transient passengers, formed from the pollination of source, a body composed of spirit and matter. That's us. This seems to be an enviable characteristic in the 3D and 4D realities. We are composed of a milieu of seventh density consciousness, which is the crown chakra, and earth consciousness in a 3D form. We are fully aware and engaging in spirit while fully present in body form. And you guys know this? We are spirit made manifest. That is our composition and sovereignty. 100% matter and 100% spirit simultaneously, just like they said about Jesus, just like alchemy claims, just like Rosicrucianism points to, just like Zen exemplifies. Okay? All the stuff we've studied, all cohesive, all good. We humans are spirit and matter united. That's why the point of kenosis is dissolving into God. The point of Zen is enlightenment, releasing from the concerns of the Maya. Okay? We human beings are spirit and matter united, 100% flesh, 100% spirit. We are both. This is why they try to con you with this fact that Jesus was the only one that was like that. No, that's actually you, 100% flesh and 100% spirit. And the trick is to unify through that conundrum in a difficult environment. That is the hero's journey. That is the journey of the human soul. Oops, sorry. Next page. Earth and surrounding planets, which have changed over the millennia, has long functioned as a hardcore multi-density food chain or energy harvesting operation run by 4D STS forces from the Orion Consortium, creating a difficult environment for us to develop on purpose. The Earth and surrounding planets have been a loosh harvesting operation for hundreds of millions of years, long before we were here, okay? Long before the 309,000 years ago. We humans arrived 309,000 years ago and became the focal point of a much larger 4D war because of the energy we carried naturally from being a seventh density precipitation. And this is why 309,000 years ago, there was that war you've heard about, that they talked about on the Jesse Michaels show, on the video I played before we started tonight. There was a massive war that occurred after we infused, because it was a miracle and it was incredible. And all of a sudden you had these beings on this planet that at that time is being used for loosh production, and all of a sudden you found gold. You found essentially a goose that lays a golden egg on your farm. Honestly, same thing. And the managers of the 4D loosh program that's been going on with dinosaurs and different cataclysms and harvesting the loosh that comes out of world cataclysms, okay? That's a rhythm that's going on and on and on long before we're here. And then 309,000 years ago, according to the Cassiopaeans, there was a precipitation that came out of the void like pollen that carried the human entelechy within it. And it landed. We complied as that essence from the void, and we became the bodies. And the DNA from Earth meshed, intermingled with the DNA from seventh density. That's us. And these two DNAs mingled 50-50. And what came out of that is this right here. This, us. This. A hairless creature that's highly sensitive, highly emotional, and very in tune to a higher frequency, and able, in fact, to transcend to 4D. That's something a plant can't do. That's something a lion can't do. A lion's got to go through different lifetimes and densify before it's going to opportune itself the ability to go to 4D. All of a sudden on this planet, there were God knows how many beings that were us, orphans. Just here we are. And the story, this is how you can follow this, the story of humanity has been our progression within that environment we became in. In other words, sprouting where we're planted. And there have been epochs of human beings before us, namely the Atlanteans, namely the Lemurians, who were advanced civilizations, who took that scenario and their potential and began to grow, realize, become, just like the story I explained to you about how shamans became the priests, and then the priests became the globalists, the bankers that run everything. It was just a progression of power due to knowledge. And this is exactly how we develop as a species. There's a progression. And as one generation dies off, they leave for this next generation all this technology they built, all this invention, all this God that was coming out of them. And they build a more complex reality, a more complex environment. And then that generation dies off, and the next one goes, and the next one goes. And now you can see why there's been a systematic effort to dumb down the educational systems for us. That's why. So that our potential isn't realized, so that we don't become like the Atlanteans, so that we don't become like the Lemurians, so we don't become like the Kentecs. Creatures that advanced and advantaged themselves over long periods of time, hundreds of years. I mean, think of how long it took Rome to develop. Okay, advantaging, and it takes time to develop these complexities. And that's what we do. And what do you see in the Earth history? Just a passing on of the political structure, the passing on of the war environment, the passing on of the culture, the passing on of the Deshi mythology. And it complexifies over time. And that's why our mythology now is more complex than the religious one you were handed to as a child. That's why. And you can take in the idea of extraterrestrials, off-planet influence, and the idea that there is no heaven or hell because you have advanced. You're growing. Your perspective is widening. This is what the controllers don't want, because the society then transcends the control mechanisms that have kept that society on the planet as loosh fruit producers. That's the bigger picture. And over time, over eons and eons and eons, the same plot unfolds again and again as the cataclysms come, as the earth wipes itself out from all the energies that not only happen naturally, but from the influence of the 4D forces, which is why right now you as a potential 4D force have the ability, have the power to stop the cataclysms from continuing. That's the bigger picture. And you have the opportunity now to create a heaven on earth, essentially, by ridding of the loosh farm and overcoming the controllers that have always held us and our progression and our awareness in check. This is the bigger picture in play. And this is why they don't want you cluing in to all this alchemy stuff, all this Buddhism and Zen stuff. They don't want you cluing into the alternate history. They don't want you cluing into all of the extraterrestrial knowledge, all the extraterrestrial tech that's coming. They don't want you cluing in. They want you unaware because that keeps you controllable. One of the reasons why you can control the cows and the chickens that you're growing is because you're smarter than them. You have a higher conscious awareness than they do. You know how to trap them and keep them in a space. Same with us. Continuing. The Earth and surrounding planets have been a loosh harvesting operation for hundreds of millions of years. That's what the dinosaurs were. We humans arrived and became the focal point of a much larger 4D war because of the energy we carried naturally from being 7th density precipitation. 2nd density life, flora and fauna, including the dinosaur era, because the dinosaurs are not higher consciousness, but they create a lot of loosh because there was a lot of fighting. Produce basic loosh in through their fear, pain, and endless predator-prey cycle of life and death. The same kind of loosh that comes off a zebra as it's killed by a cheetah. About 10 to 15 minutes of running and fighting, creating anxiety, which is loosh. That happens to the cheetah. And then about a minute of unbelievable pain as the cheetah finishes it off. And that creates a surge of loosh. And then it's over, and the lion gives off loosh as it eats the adrenaline-rich meat from the dying zebra. Before us, the natural seasonal changes and planetary dynamisms of the Earth produced large volumes of loosh consistently. Large dinosaurs were implemented and phased out as part of the engineered stability of the program over the course of many 309-year epochs. We are very late attenders to a long-running loosh extraction operation, and that's why the Earth had been chosen long before we were here as a loosh extraction planet, because it was very conducive to life. Very conducive to life, and so was Mars. Very conducive to life. And it's these planets and Kentek, when it was around, conducive to life, just the way that this solar system formed. It just is a really good dynamism. It carries a lot of natural energy, natural electromagnetic energy. And so it's good when it was all vegetable, because you guys have heard the theories of Paul's statements, and Paul has made it very clear that we've come through 4 different flora and fauna cycles. And one of those flora and fauna cycles that he describes, there were mushrooms as big as houses and trees that reached the atmosphere thousands and thousands of feet. And lo and behold, we can see the base of those trees now right here on Earth. We have been in a cycle. And what happens on a giant planet that's filled with flora and fauna and dinosaurs, it brings about a tremendous amount of loosh. Tremendous amount. It's hard. It's a worthy farm. And because 2D creatures are not aware of life like you and I are not fathoming of distant future and creatively building cities and so forth, right? Being in that cycle does not cause them oppression. It causes us oppression when we're in a cycle of no expansion. That doesn't happen to a flower. A flower is good with it. It's good with just hanging out for thousands and thousands of years in its rotation. Same with a bee. Happy. Let's do it. All good. They're not working with a higher conscious, but when you have a higher consciousness, you see, you're not okay being in a pen. You're not okay being in a stagnant environment. You're not okay being in a killing environment. You're not okay in a low awareness environment. Well, see, these are not concerns of the lion, of the deer, of the bush. They're concerns of yours because you're higher consciousness. And so when we landed on the planet, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out the farmers who are just maintaining a loosh farm realize, holy S, Frank, have you noticed the creatures that we've been working on now look different, and there's a tremendous amount of energy coming off of them. Holy S. That's what happened at 309,000 years ago. And a massive battle between service to others and service to self began on our behalf. Half the faction wanted to use us and pilfer us and steal our energy. And the other half of this 4D enterprise that's overseeing all this Earth planet stuff that's going on saw the awareness that was available in us when God DNA entered the bodies that were here on this planet. It was noticed. It was noticed. And those beings realized if we don't get those souls off that planet, they're going to be compromised in their development. This is the natural course of nature. It's like the child that accidentally slips off a cliff. There's nothing you can do. The child is going to fall and die. That's the way it is. You can't stop it. It's like the mountain climber that climbs without ropes. One of these days, that grip is going to slip and they're going to die. It just goes with the territory. And in a merciless nature, in a merciless universe, this kind of thing can happen. The natural precipitation of God consciousness precipitating through the universe can cause these kind of situations to happen. We're in a miracle. This is a wonder. You can't be thinking in terms of just the finite. You've got to understand wacky stuff like this can happen naturally as a part of the organic, growing, expanding consciousness that is 2D, 3D, 4D, 5D, and so on and so forth, densities, realities. You get amazing things that happen. And one of the amazing things that happened was this precipitation. And here we are. And we have been in that attempting to expand and grow now against our captors for 309,000 years. And they just basically held the ball because they can control time. They're lucid and moving through and into and out of time. They have a technology that's past ours. They can move through wormholes, come through portals. They can suddenly appear and disappear in front of you. They have great advantage. And so a high consciousness being like us can still be exploited by a higher consciousness, namely 4D. 309,000 years ago, Earth-based bodies were readied on and off planet by a cluster of STS forces in the Orion Consortium, a fourth density group of STS aliens. The human soul came into 3D to have a sensorial, self-oriented experience, and this planetary system was simply a field of opportunity for it. Transient passenger human soul pollen precipitated into these Earth containers, already adapted into the ecosystem. That's the Sasquatch Neanderthal forms. So the form, the spirit, us, finally took was in accord with the environment in its own way. That's why 50% of the DNA have to be local to the environment or you're not going to be able to adapt. We had to be half Earth creatures. So the germs, the stuff that kills things on this planet, we already had an immune system for. Obvious. Okay. And then this is mixed so that then we form a being that is more conducive to the planet. But that's also why we have joints that are fitting for the gravity, because we're a finessed being. We're a being that has high sensitivity and high dexterity and very calculated reasoning. Okay, we're a refinement of a Sasquatch type. Our fingers are smaller. Our form is smaller. Our density, meaning our bone structure, is smaller. We're a more finer being. Our hair is finer. We're a finer form, smooth skin. We're more affected by the weather, affected by the environment. A Sasquatch can go with it. But a human being ain't going to do okay naked in the Antarctic. It ain't going to work out. Sasquatch is doing fine. Here you can see these slight discrepancies. We can hang out and be in winter if we've got some clothing and in shelter. Okay, we're good. Do you see? So it's another level of refinement required to house, quote unquote, a creature like us. This is refinement in action. You're seeing the parallels right in front of you. Okay. That is why we took as we do and are not as well proportioned to the gravity of the Earth as would happen in evolution. 50% of us is from off-planet 7th density DNA, and it has its own agenda, just like your gut mind, okay? Your gut mind tells you your favorite color, your interests, and so on and so forth. It's got its own agenda. Earth, again, another pattern. Here we are, another pattern. Earth can deliver the seasonal goods, so an Earth-based body would deliver rich experiential results for the human soul that wanted to have the experience of separation, and that's us. We wanted the experience of the separation of illusion when we came out of the void. That's the human collective. That's our commonality. The best body on Earth at that time for source pollination was a Sasquatch Neanderthal type body ready for third density mind expansion. This is where our true love of nature sources from the beings that had been here for possibly millions of years before us. See, they were part of the 2D loosh farm before we showed up. I told you about with the dinosaurs. That's what's going on. For millions of years before us, developing before we entered them, and changed their body from hairy to smooth, large stature to smaller, more delicately boned, more dexterous hands and feet, bigger imagination, bigger consciousness potential, etc. What became Homo sapien. In other words, we looked exactly like this 309,000 years ago, and the way you know that you're an image of God is because the controllers, anyone who manipulated us, never know what's going to come out of that gene pool. You never know. And it's the natural self-assembly, self-organizing that becomes out from that milieu. And this is us. So you are in the form, you are in the image of source, because 50% of your DNA came from seventh density. So you have traits of your parent, just like your son or daughter have traits of you. They're not completely like you in the sense of their personality, their take, their awareness, and so on and so forth, just like you in regards to consciousness and God. You're an offspring, a progeny of God. Same with your children. They're prodigy of you, an example of you, an expression, an art of you. We are an art, an expression of God that self-replicates, self-becomes, expands. That's the God in you. You're self-expanding, a 2D creature, a plant. It's not expanding in consciousness in the sense of you and I expanding in consciousness. It's a consciousnness. It has consciousness, but it's different. And so when a Sasquatch gets 50% God consciousness, it changes its body and it completely changes its appearance and completely changes the telos, the whole meaning of life, why it's here, what is going on, what's the bigger picture, changes because the consciousness changes. This was us. This was us 309,000 years ago. Earth can deliver the sensorial goods, so an earth-based body could deliver rich experiential results for the human soul that wanted to experience separation. The best body on Earth is that time, the best body on Earth at that time for source pollination was a Sasquatch-type Neanderthal body ready for third density mind expansion. This is where our true love of nature sources, from the beings that had been here for possibly millions of years before us, developing before we entered them, and changed their body from a hairy, smooth, large stature to smaller, more delicately boned, more dexterous hands and feet, bigger imagination, larger consciousness potential, etc. What became Homo sapien? In other words, what we looked like. We looked like this 309,000 years ago. Did you know that? Now it gets very complicated. Third density comes with two tendencies: service to self, as we've talked about, and service to others. We came here to experience the sensorial world. Now, this is going to catch you into the Lucifer idea. We came here to experience the sensorial world as a spiritual being. So we came here with a service to self bent, which poses challenges metaphysically to realize fourth density STO, our next density, as a third density being. According to the C's, there were two types of 3D containers Sasquatch readied for the soul seeding. About 50% were ready for normal 3D STO or STS authentic polarity expansion, and the other 50% did not have the capacity to graduate to a 3D higher awareness. These unexpandable 2D animal consciousnesses beings are called organic portals, and they are a second density, highly genetically modified, low consciousness version of a human being. That's George Soros. A clone, essentially. A form without a higher consciousness soul. In case you didn't know that, George Soros does not have a soul. Their soul, so to speak, or what animates them, is a collective consciousness. That is what animates George Soros, all the politicians, the globalists, the money mongers, the murderers. They're part of a collective consciousness soul. This is the same soul as the animal, as the wolf, as the lion. Low density, 2D. There's no expansion going on. Okay, no higher consciousness happening. Okay, no higher consciousness. Okay, these are organic portals, and you meet people like this all the time. Also, they're the ones that are bought and sold down the river for every egregore. They're the ones that obey everybody else, or their authorities, because they have no self-determination. They're a 2D consciousness. They're an animal consciousness. They're fully animated. They act like you. They respond similar to you. They'll laugh like you do, but they don't have a deeper sense. It only goes as deep as stockpiling money, passing your progeny on, like having sex and having kids so that your progeny continues, power usurpation. Those are the goals of a 2D individual. They have no thought of what's better for the whole collective. How can I better myself so I can expand and be a better and more compassionate person to others? That thought never enters their head. Never enters their head. They're a part of a collective, low frequency animal consciousness. Okay, they were part of this original situation. These unexpandable 2D animal consciousness beings are called organic portals, and they are a second density, highly genetically modified, low consciousness version of a human being, a clone essentially, a form without a higher consciousness soul, their soul, so to speak, or what animates them is a collective consciousness, like what animals share, an instinct, not a heart. These are low consciousness beings, and they're used as gateways to 3D by the 4D controllers, as I said earlier, as OPs, organic portals, and they have no humanity in them. They are pure low frequency animal. You see, just like training a bear to be in the circus, you have dumbed that bear down and stupefied that bear to the point that it will do tricks in a circus. Okay, that bear has all kinds of potential well beyond that. That's stupefying the bear. Okay, you're the exact same picture. You have all these potentials, but you've been stupefied. And there are people in this world that are such a low consciousness that that stupefaction is okay with them. They don't have an independent thought. They don't self-critique. That doesn't happen. Okay, so that's good enough. Performing the circus, getting paid to do the rides, getting paid to make the people laugh is good enough. There are people like that. We're surrounded by, there's a lot of them. They, according to Mark Passio, 10% of the world are Satanists. 10% sacrificing weekly. Just service of self. Completely sold down the river, service to self, and working systematically to take your life also. And he said 10% of the world's population. Okay, well, in America, the population is 300 million. So it's 30 million people. 30 million people are operating on a 2D, and that's bare minimum. The estimates from the Cassiopaeans is 50% of the world is on a 2D. Not all Satanists, but just on a super low level awareness. You can imagine people like that. You know people like that. You know people like that. Free will is a 3D awareness precursor to higher consciousness because it is an action motivated not by instinct, but by purpose decision. It's a choice and therefore loaded with karma because of intentional variability. An instinctual life has little variation and therefore little karma. A being must graduate to a threshold in 2D to be ready for a 3D existence in the same way a human must graduate 3D awareness to be able to handle a 4D jump, okay? Obvious, common sense. A child must learn to walk before they can run, okay? Common sense. Ultimately, free will offered us the potential necessary, this is key, for genuine self-awareness. Remember I said a 2D individual isn't self-aware, they're not self-critiquing, okay? We have the capacity for self-awareness because we're a higher frequency individual. A collective. We have the capacity for genuine self-awareness, conscious creativity, and the ability to crystallize STO through the realization of who we are. And we've been talking about that for years. The solar system upgraded with third density humans 309,000 years ago, and we generate a substantially higher quality, more complex loosh from the emotional, psychological suffering we are capable. The Cassiopaean transcripts claim that Orion reptilian Lizzies and allied STS service to self groups, including the Greys as proxies, Greys or clones, performed repeated genetic engineering on Earth life forms over the entire 200,000 year span of our existence, okay? We've been genetically modified, okay? It hasn't been one story, hasn't been two genetic modifications, wasn't one early and one later. It's been multiple, many times, just like a farmer on a farm. He is constantly finding new phenotypes. He is constantly trying to improve his yield. He is constantly trying to make the fruit sweeter. Okay, to make the wheat grains fatter. Look at the cows they use in Switzerland. These things are full of bulk and muscle. Over long periods of time, they find the phenotype, the type of cow that's more muscular than the other, and they just keep breeding the more muscular ones. And for us, they just kept breeding the versions of us that were more and more sensitive, producing more and more loosh. And unfortunately, at the same time, consciousness increases with those expansions because when you're more sensitive, you're more conscious. Do you follow the reason why we have smooth skin and so on and so forth? Okay. And so they're harvesting this. They're going after this. The 4D creatures are going after that. They're spotting the ones that can be exploited, that produce all kinds of loosh, all kinds of anxiety, all kinds of means and ways to extract energy because they don't have a high enough consciousness to realize a space that transcends their small 2D concerns. It's the bigger story. This included altering early human DNA to make bodies more suitable for STS soul reincarnation, increase physicality, sexuality, and heighten emotional reactivity, all to optimize loose production and control. Humans are described as a genetic construct, of course, by the Cassiopaeans, abused genetically by multiple STS factions: Atlantean, Syrian, Orion Union, Reptilian, Loosh. This should tell you how hard they have tried to capture your free will, exploit your energy, kill your human spirit, and usurp your divine right. A very large percentage of the current population are organic portals. That's the 2D animal consciousness. They serve the STS control system by default, not because they are inherently evil, but because they lack the capacity to make a true polarity choice. This is the tragedy. They don't have a moral ethic. Do you realize that? Meaning Soros ain't going to have a sudden change of heart. There's no moral ethic there. It doesn't exist. Does a moral ethic exist in a wolf? Does it exist in a bear? Does it exist in a lion? There's no moral concern there. Moral concern is a byproduct of higher consciousness. Do you realize that? It's a byproduct of higher consciousness. Being concerned about your neighbor and concerned that they are fulfilled and happy is not something that a lion deals with. It's something you deal with. And it's because you are of a higher consciousness, a higher vibration. And this gives you tolerance, love, compassion, and these things come out of you. They're not taught. They are not instructed. Compassion is not taught. It's something you realize as you identify with another. Do you see why they've been trying to misidentify us, call us sinners, call us dirty carbon generators, call us prone to evil, prone to wander, genetic modificated losers? That's why they've done that. To sustain, to suspend, to suppress your consciousness, your awareness, meaning sustain it at a low frequency. This is all coming forward. They operate on the same instincts as a lion or jackal. They are monsters because they believe that is why they are here, to usurp others and build power. They do not have, think of Adam's shift. They do not have a higher consciousness capacity. They cannot learn good from evil. That's a tragedy. We're surrounded by these people. That's why they don't learn good from evil. That's why they're recidivists. They keep going back over. They're not building. They're not becoming. It's like asking a shark if it feels bad for killing. OPs do not have the capacity for STO sensitivity, compassion, or love. That's you and I. They act as patriots of humans, not feeling what is a human response, a humane response, but portraying it to access advantage. They do not have a deeper sense of things and believe life and existence is a race to plunder, not a challenge to expand. They are conscious enough to learn the games, follow the rules. See, here, it's all going to come to you now. They are conscious enough to learn the games, follow the rules, and act without independent thought like any squirrel or bird. The capacity stops there. They're trained monkeys. They don't have an innate sense of self. They're trained bears. They don't have an innate sense of self, oneness, or compassion. They cannot bring about an experience of the deeper sense because they don't have that capacity. This is why the politicians can lie to your face. Lie straight. There is no moral ethic they're struggling with. There's no capacity. It doesn't even exist. Doesn't even exist. Them feeling bad for stealing your money, for stealing from children, for raping children. You think they're going to feel bad? There's no compassion. There's no higher consciousness there. And these are the people that have ruled and built our society. That's your sobering moment for the night. They don't even have the capacity, friend. It's not even there. And when they die, they're not going to heaven, hell, purgatory. They're just coming back here again to do the same thing. They don't have a higher soul potential. They're not considering the deeper principles. They're not going to 5D. They're just reincarnating here, just come back over and over again, over and over again, over and over again, totally stagnant, sick. This is why the Great Awakening is happening, friend. All of those low frequency individuals will be removed or will remove themselves. Think of all the people that bought the COVID lie. Think of all the people that do as science tells them. Think of all the people that get vaxxes every single year. Totally unaware. They are taking themselves out. You're looking at Darwin Awards in action. You're looking at Darwin Awards. They're taking us. This is part of the culling of the Great Awakening. This is why these things are happening. To cull out the ones that are aware, that are of a higher consciousness, and the ones that are not, they're leaving the Earth system. We are moving to 4D. We are moving into a transcendent realm. That's the cataclysm. The big wipeout is the removal of all these low frequency beings that have held us in check, in developmental check. It's not an agenda. It's not repercussions. It's just simple matter of fact of the farmer looking at the crop and saying, well, that plant's sick, that plant's sick, that plant's sick, take them out. They're going to sicken the rest of the farm. And we've been in an environment with farmers who have been purposely putting parasites and sicknesses into the crop just enough to keep it sick, but not kill it. And then every once in a while, a cataclysm comes along, wipes the crop out. That's fine. Put in the new genetic markers. Put in the new genetic constructs we've put together off planet. Just put them right back there on the planet. Why do you think the planet was all orphans in, like, what was it, the 1800s or whatever? Wipe out. Wipe out. New genetic modifications being installed into the system. Like I said, the Cassiopaean theory takes in all of these events. They're not conscious enough to learn. They are conscious enough to learn the games, follow the rules, and act without independent thought like a squirrel or bird, but capacity stops there. They don't have an innate sense of self, oneness, or compassion. They cannot bring about an experience of the deeper sense because they don't function at that capacity. They don't have it. This concept explains why so much of humanity seems to function as compliant cogs in an STS wheel. I mean, doesn't it though? Doesn't it though? And why genuine STO awakening feels rare and difficult among the few who experience it. I mean, how many of you are experiencing alienation? The STS Human Engineering Program required narrative control. After each cataclysm or reset, the surviving human populations were given new, carefully crafted myths. Of course. I mean, we've talked about that. We've talked about the emergence of society in Levant. Okay? Newly crafted myths were taught to all those creatures, all those human beings that were reincarnated and in the Levant. And they're given a programmed history. And look at what we believe now. Same programmed history put in creatures just like us thousands of years ago. It works. It's a program that works. It's a program that works. It's a loosh producing farm. Okay. After each cataclysm reset, the surviving human populations were given new, carefully crafted myths. The true players, the Lizzie's Orion group, the Kentuckians, I struggle with that word, were turned into gods or demons. The real reason for human suffering, to produce Lucifer farm, was hidden behind moral or religious dogmas to keep the truth from surfacing. Now you see how religion was twisted. All the tales of being born less than, or separated from God, or a sinner capable of saving incapable of saving oneself, or doomed to hell, or doomed to fall short of God's glory, were all ploys to subvert you into the karma that goes with STO predation. Do you follow? Because you're complicit. Because you're complicit. And you're not expanding. You comply with the STS plot and therefore are subject to it. Just like walking into the vampire's house. If the vampire invites you in and you walk in on your own initiative, on your own way, you now have given up all your sovereignty. And that's exactly, again, another pattern. That's exactly the plot here. You're a true STO being, but you give it away when you comply with the egregores, with the lies that are already in place. That's the theater that you were born into. And because nature's merciless, guess what? You got to learn the hard way. And that is why the earth is on the hero's journey, just like your life. That's why the entire Cassiopaean mythology ties directly into the mythology of Parsifal, the journey of the hero, because that's the human collective story. Do you get it? We were put into an impossible situation, just like the hero. You're abused, tormented, just like the hero, treated unfairly, treated wrongly, used against yourself, your weaknesses used against you. This is the story of the hero. That's the story of humanity, is it not? 309,000 years of genetic mutations, oppression, systematic destruction of the human species, the human collective. That's the story of the hero, friend, because what does the hero do? The hero emerges from the destruction and changes the world, replenishes the world, brings love to the world. That's the human collective story. And that's your story. That's why your story is the same thing. That's why you can relate to the collective through the story of mythology, because you can relate to the person who's abused their whole life, because that is all of us, and all of us in different degrees. And this is why we carry the story of the hero, the journey of the hero's journey within us. And when you accord into that, do you see how you can amalgamate your situation, not be taken by it, and transcend, just like the butterfly, just like the caterpillar? That's you. The deeper picture. We're doing good on time. All the tales, we'll get to questions here momentarily. The troop, let's see. All the tales of being born less than and separated from God, or a sinner incapable of saving oneself, or doomed to hell, or doomed to fall short of God's glory, were all ploys to subvert you into the karma that goes with being, that goes with STO predation, because they have been predators against you. Being a willing sinner, here's the line, here's the key catch. Being a willing sinner, and every sinner fights to stay a sinner until the day they die. Every one of them does. Being a willing and complicit sinner is to capitulate your sovereignty by choice. And that kind of ignorance, lack of awareness, can be pilfered by 4D beings. In other words, if you aren't aware, they will pilfer you. There's no mercy here. None on offer. If you're going to buy the lies, if you're going to integrate into the cons, if you're going to believe that you're a sinner, if you're going to believe you're a dirty carbon getter, my friend, that's your fault. That's your fault. And you deserve whatever goes with believing that about yourself, because you become what you believe. And if you believe you're a sinner, you're going to live the sinner's life. That's your choice. That's your choice. You gave away your sovereignty. You gave it all away when you said, okay, I believe I'm a sinner. Okay, I believe I have to be saved. Okay, I believe I can't save myself. You disempowered yourself. You're complicit. This is why they don't want you to know about religion. This is why they want you to know that the Great Awakening has zero to do with Jesus, zero to do with any of the plots that you've been given. Zero. Doesn't have to do with Islam, doesn't have to do with Christianity, doesn't have anything to do with atheism, science, any of that stuff. It's going to usurp and overcome all of that, just like transcending to 4D yourself. You passed, you rid of all the egregores, you've seen through all of it. You've seen through all of it, you're not taken by it at all anymore. You're ready for 4D. Hello. Hello. Being a willing sinner is to capitulate sovereignty by choice, and that kind of ignorance, lack of awareness, can be pilfered by 4D beings. Truth obscuring egregores, blame, and complicit shame kept humanity. Remember, 80% are still Christian in the West, kept humanity. Self-consuming. What are 80% in the West doing spiritually? Self-consuming, asking permission, seeking approval, and expecting reproof. Emotionally completely plussed and discouraging of collective awakening. And how do we know they're discouraging of collective awakening? Because the Christian isn't interested in an awakening that doesn't have anything to do with Christianity. They're not interested. The Islamist doesn't want to have anything to do with a great awakening that doesn't center on Islam and Allah. And what did I write right here? What did I write right here? Right here. Truth obscuring egregores, namely Christianity, Islam, blame, and complicit shame kept humanity self-consuming, asking permission, seeking approval, and expecting reproof. emotionally plussed and discouraging of collective awakening. There it is, folks. Matter of fact, common sense, plain as day logic. There it is. There it is. Plain as day logic. Don't even have to imagine to see it. You are complicit. You gave away your sovereignty when you bought into religion. Note, the reinterpretation of mythology is presented by the Cassiopaeans as one of the most powerful tools for breaking free. Once you understand that religious stories are distorted coercion rather than literal truth, you, my friend, you awaken. You can reclaim the real narrative. Lo and behold, we are the human soul group in the final stages of a 309-year experience, and the current wave offers the chance to graduate rather than wash and repeat into another cycle of samsara, namely 3D existence. Human souls are part of a long-running third density trial in polarity choice, and the engineering has been primarily driven by STS forces to enhance the farm, not enhance soul development. After Earth became populated with strong STO potential beings, a great war was fought over the planet and STO forces lost. Earth was then immediately locked down by Orion forces, where souls were trapped at death into an electromagnetic tractor beam disguised as heaven in the distance, to keep any human soul from leaving Earth and returning to fifth density. See, they keep you complicit even after you die. You choose to go to the light, and therefore you abandon your option to go to fifth density, and you're going to come right back here. You're complicit. I've been complicit. The moon was a trap to hijack human consciousness development for 309,000 years. That's when it was established. This locked STO humans on the planet for the entire 309-year cycle, and that's you. And that's me. The reversal of the loosh farm into balanced consciousness ecosystem begins now. I'll be the only one on your block that will say that, because everyone else is going to tell you you're doomed, you're effed, we're all going to die, the world is over. I'm going to be one of the few people, I'll be one of the few people that don't say that, because I don't want that reality. And you get what you want. And when you promote that reality, guess what you're doing? You're acting just like the 2D people. You're just bringing the collective down with it. You're just the rotten apple in the bunch. You're just going to rot the whole collective. You have to change your perspective. You have to change your mindset. The world becomes what you want it to be. Okay. The reversal of the loose farm. You are witness to the slow change over that always happens during a realm border crossing wave event. That's what we're in. Through individual awareness, knowledge, and STO orientation, each of us, that's you and me, plays a part in the changeover. See, this is the beautiful thing. We are not saved. We save ourselves. We merit it. And you don't want any other transcendence, do you? You don't want someone to hand you transcendence. You want to experience it yourself. You don't send people to the game to experience the game. You go to the game. You don't just look at their notes. No, you go to the game. You're here to transcend, friend. That's why you're here. Okay? We participate in this, and that's the beauty of this. What is the main point of the Cassiopaean contact? To help 3D STO souls, that's you and me, friend. That's why you're watching me for all this time. You're an STO. You're learning. You want to learn. Make informed choices. That's why you want to learn, to make informed choices. So we can graduate, that's you, that's me, out of the cycle of reincarnation, samsara, if we wish. There's the key little bite there at the end. If you wish. Because the choice is yours. Why? Because you have free will. You have free will. The choice is yours. Are you aware enough to make an informed decision? Or are you just obeying? Are you aware enough to think for yourself? Or are you just thinking what you've been told? Are you aware enough to not become a part of a cult? Or are you a part of a cult? It's up to you. It's nobody's fault but yours. There's no one to blame but the mirror. Honestly, you have every opportunity to escape your trap. Every opportunity. It's called potential. And as an organic being, as a service to others being, which is what you are, you have every opportunity to participate not only in your awakening, but in the awakening of others. And there's no greater fulfillment. I mean, look right there. We got 17 on the list right now of people that we have helped awaken. helped realize a larger, bigger world. And this saves them. It's not my work. It's because they were exposed to some of the things we talk about and they expanded, and that saved them. They expanded their consciousness. That is the main point of the Cassiopaean contact, to help 3D STO souls make informed choices so we can graduate out of the cycle of reincarnation if we wish, rather than remain trapped as loosh producers for another 309,000 years on another tougher planet. And trust me, friend, nature will send you to a tougher planet if you don't learn your lesson here. Honest to God. That's how nature works. It's a refinement. We've just been locked in a trap because they put a loosh trap around us. But normally you would just go to a tougher planet if you didn't learn your lesson. We, as authentic human soul matrix consortium from the imagination of source, wanted to have the full 3D experience, and this in many ways, and here we get into Lucifer, was to, and this in many ways is to yearn for a service to self-gravity. Here's where we're tying into Lucifer. We yearned for the 3D experience, and this in many ways is to yearn for a service to self-gravity, which it is, because each in the human collective wants to have their own unique experience of the illusion of separation in a 3D world. Sort of like going to an amusement park. You don't send a representative to tell you about the rides. You go on the ride because you personally want to have the experience. This was humanity in the imagination of source. Do you follow this? This was our entelechy coming out before we had even exited source. What is entelechy? The imagination of God. And before we even manifested as 3D, we wanted that, because the universe contains what's called free will. And just like you have an imaginative mind, and you imagine in your mind something you want to build, and so you shape your life and learn the skills necessary to build what it is that's in your mind. This is the same pattern that we came out of from the void. Same pattern. The imagination of God. And what is that? It's a human being in our case. This is our sense of humor. This is the kind of thing we typically build. These are our typical interests. This is the kind of planet and environment we like, or are naturally inclined to. This is the kind of way we take. This is all uniquely human. You see, and this is what brings about higher and higher awareness. Are you following the pattern? Are you following the pattern? Okay, so you don't go, you don't send a reporter to find out at the amusement park. You go and ride the ride yourself. Okay, well, that's service to self. Follow. Now follow this. Don't get tied in. Follow. Okay, you go on the ride because you personally want to have the experience. This was humanity in the origin, in the imagination of source, unfortunately or fortunately. This is to be considered with self-concerns, independent thought, which separates and which ultimately holds a service to self-objective. It is what it is. I'm just giving the practical fact of the matter situation, and that is when we left the void, we had a tendency for service to self because we wanted the 3D experience. It's okay. Don't panic. But there are catches that go along with that experience. It's okay. But there are catches that go along with it. It doesn't make you evil. It doesn't make you prone to wander because you want to have a material experience and you enjoy material things. There's nothing wrong with that. It's entangling with them that becomes the problem. But see, religion labeled that experience of the material as inherently evil. You came into form, inherent evilness. Light came into form. And this was twisted in the idea that there's something wrong with you, that you're prone to evil. No, it's that you wanted to have the 3D experience, which involves separation or the illusion of it. Your will was twisted against you. Do you see? And it was turned into this negative evil thing as though you're craving evil. No, no. You would like to have the 3D experience. And that involves good and evil. That involves polarity. That involves the illusion of separation. There are all kinds of catches that go with it. And what the controllers did was just simply take those inherent, quote unquote, weak spots and exploit them. That's what religion is. That's what science is. It's an exploited form of reality. Religion is an exploited form of you. And it was curtailed with these ideas about yourself that religion programs into people, so that your natural desires, quote unquote, to have the 3D experience are turned into, well, that's sin. You can't do that. That's sin. That's morally wrong. And so the church went in and systematically took out certain experiences that were very awesome for the human being. They just took out certain ones to deplete, to generate scarcity. That's the point of dogma. to bring you into a world of scarcity, a world of need, a world of asking permission, seeking approval, and expecting proof, because it's not in you. Scarcity was programmed into you off of this yearning that you had, this quote unquote desire that you had to have a 3D experience, which was the calling of the human collective. That was the imagination of God. What is it like to have the 3D experience, to be a 100% spiritual creature and a 100% physical creature at the same time? What does that mean? And imagine that is the imagination coming out of God. In the same way, you know, I wonder if I put a 500 horsepower engine in that 200-pound go-kart, if it's going to, how much faster it's going to go than a 200 horsepower engine on that same cart. And I know it's an extreme example, but the point stands. You don't know. You can imagine the car, you can imagine the track, but you don't actually know what it's like to physically do that. That requires an illusion of separation. That requires a moment of time. There's no time in 7D. There's no separation. Do you see the conundrum? And how then it was twisted and pilfered against you? The natural inclination of why you came here was used against you. This is a magnificent connection for you guys to build a bigger world for you. Okay. This was humanity in the imagination of source. Unfortunately or fortunately, this is to be concerned with self-concerns, independent thought, which separates and which ultimately holds service to self-objective. It is what it is. It was this that became the basic challenge of the human experience. How to balance the sensorial world with spiritual growth. How to be fully present in a seemingly separate body while fully given to spiritual realization. How to realize the physical world's experience as a bridge, a means, a ways to experience the ineffable past the idea of oneness. That's a key line right there. And when you go back and study these slides later, please reiterate these questions in your mind. How to utilize the physical world's experience as a bridge. There's your key line, that there's nothing wrong with the physical world. As a bridge, a means, a ways to experience the spiritual world, which is what you are. Your spirit taken form. The tree is spirit taken form. You are experiencing the spiritual world, which is the real world, in a 3D illusion that you can feel, that you can engage, that you can invent within and have tactile engagement within. That's a miracle. That's a miracle. It is very rare, from what I am picking up in the universe, to have beings that are in this plane that we exist. It's rarefied air. And that really gives reason to why the controllers never wanted you to know this and wanted you just to think you're just a dumb old sinner that needs God to be saved. You're just a dumb old human that needs science to be saved. They purposefully did that so you would never realize your potential. There would not be any growth, but yet you'd be filled with loosh, anxiety, and you'd be giving off all this frustration because you're being held in check. You're being held in check on a farm. And this causes anxiety, causes frustration. There's all purpose to all of it. You came here to have your own life and your own personal experience. That's a beautiful thing, but it carries with it an STS gravity, a tendency, a bent towards the self in service to and for your self's pleasures, because you yourself want your own pleasure and challenging experiences relative to your own life to learn and grow. Obviously, nothing wrong with that. Self-consumption can become a self-perpetuating and thus self-consuming behavior. This is the catch. That destabilizes balance. This is the risk of going 3D. You risk destabilizing. If you play out of balance long enough, you become entangled in a wobble. And what is originally innocent spinning becomes entangled with imbalance. This is the person who's the addict. This is the person who isn't transcending, who isn't aware. Entangled with imbalance naturally. Pleasure and pain naturally balance nature. They are within it and compose it. One has the seed of the other in it. This is to be accorded, not atoned or occluded. In other words, there's nothing wrong with good and evil. They are just polarities within the whole. We know this. We've studied it. The experience of pleasure carries the risk of addiction, as risk is part and parcel to the game when playing in the consciousness of God. It's not safe. It's not hell. It's not heaven. It's all simultaneously. Okay? The universe is not safe, but it's also beautiful. These things go hand in hand. And typically, the less safe something is, often the more beautiful it becomes. In other words, the more rare something is, the more beautiful it becomes. This is a natural building of value that you experience. And it's the same thing when you see us in this same way. Okay, so if you want to participate in the experience of the sensorial, you also, here's the key, this ties into Lucifer, you also volunteer the STS risk that goes with the dualistic experience, because you just don't have one without the other. Our principal characteristic as the human thought form is knowledge, because forgetfulness is required to have a unique experience in the universe as a human being. You can't come here knowing everything, knowing anything if you want to have your own unique experience learning. Do you guys follow that logic? You can't come here knowing anything if you want to have your own unique experience learning. Do you understand that? Because if you know something already, you're biased. But see, the child isn't biased. This is why the idea of having a child's consciousness, a willingness to observe anything without any catches, thought to thought to thought to thought, no obstruction. This is why your mind is to be like that, so that you can keep going. You can keep expanding. Okay, that's knowledge. And this is how you learn. So knowledge, the awareness of the gut mind, I mean, true knowledge, if you guys, and Jenny brought this up, my wife brought this up the other day, and this is important. When I say knowledge, I'm not talking about knowledge in a book. I'm not talking about knowledge that someone can tell you. I hope that's clear. I've tried to make that clear. I'm talking about knowledge of the gut mind. Knowledge you can only realize, you can't find it. You realize it spontaneously. You don't go out and seek for it, because then you have an idea in your mind of something that you're seeking. That is not how you come upon this knowledge. You come about this knowledge through experience, giving yourself, risking yourself. That's the kind of knowledge I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, oh, you're going to be a totally transcendent person if you go out and read the Encyclopedia Britannica. No, that's not going to make you any more like thinning the veil. If anything, it's going to capture you more in it. But at the same time, it's important to know that stuff, learn it, absolutely. Just don't get entangled with it. Because true knowledge transcends anything that could be written down. And you're only going to access that kind of knowledge by learning more and more and having more and more experiences. Got it? This is what I'm referring to, just to make sure we're all on the same page. I was really happy Jenny brought that up, because I want to make that clear. So knowledge, the awareness of the gut mind, becomes the way of expansion for us as STOs. Knowledge, the gut mind, is a forgotten capacity when we seed it into 3D existence, as that is required to learn. Knowledge is light. Light is growth. Light is health. Knowledge, like sunlight, is a disinfectant. It kills mind parasites and stagnant pools of negativity. Their higher awareness does. It has power, and with that power comes responsibility, as knowledge can be used for good and evil means, because it is power realized. And this is, in a very real way, how reading the Encyclopedia Britannica does give you more power, because you learn about that. But see, you don't limit yourself to that. That's just a part of learning, and this brings you power, absolutely. But always in the gut mind, knowing, I already knew all of that, I'm just becoming consciously aware of it. But that knowledge is already within me. And the more I tie into that knowledge that is already within me, the more I transcend the conscious concerns, the conscious mind. That's the logic. That's the psychology. That's why it's important to never lock into any one belief system. It's very important to do that. Because if you lock in, you see there's no expansion. And you came here to expand. Yeah? So as beings of light, it is knowledge or illumination that becomes our greatest ally, and identity, which is the knowledge within, and identity, which is knowing who you are, because remembering who we are is what expands us to our human soul consciousness potential, the gut mind, one of the core reasons for our existence. This is why the Cassiopaeans call us Lucifer. We are seeds of light. Now follow closely. Here's the final part of our talk tonight. The Cassiopaeans use the name Lucifer to describe the human soul group, since we are the bringers of light knowledge into physicality. Lucifer is the light bearer. Its Latin origin is lux, meaning light, luminance, and fere, meaning to bear or carry. Lucifer, the light bringer, the carrier of knowledge. Please follow. Lux natura is the radiance of nature, the natural world of form, beauty, knowledge, illumination, and polarity. That is us. The human world is the world of Lucifer, the world that bears light. We are beings of light. The world of personal experience teaches the only path of illumination we can realize, which is truth. Lucifer is the one who illuminates, which is what we do, which is what we are. We are bearers of light. We illuminate the radiance of truth through personal experience. This conveys our power. I mean, what do I do every weekend with you guys here? This conveys our power, authority, spirit, and strength to consciousness, our source of ourselves. This is all pointing to Lucifer qualities: power, authority, spiritual alacrity, the strength of consciousness. It's not an idiot. And when you pose us as Lucifer, you can see how it fits. And that's why we are called that, because we are bearers of light. And Lucifer was turned into the evil devil that they made Lucifer, so you would never realize that's your truth. You are a bearer of light. You communicate light, just like the snake did in the garden, communicating to Eve. You need to understand the bigger picture that you're in. And the whole story was twisted in this idea of humankind falling into the temptations of Lucifer, of the snake. That's not true. That's a twisted version. We fell into 3D consciousness by choice. And we fell from the garden, meaning the void. We fell from the garden, and light informed us. Light is Lucifer. Lucifer informed us of our finite knowledge here on this earth. And this was twisted into a ploy to make you afraid of Lucifer, you yourself, the light within you, to make you afraid of the knowledge, the gut mind that you carry. The entire plot of Christianity was used to twist this very aspect about you, that you're a being of light, and to relate a being of light to Lucifer, to an evil creature, not to relate a being of light to yourself, a service to others, a beautiful creature. That's the twist. That's the twist. I will continue explaining. By choosing to enter third density, the human soul unit rebelled and brought the light of self-awareness. This is the story of Prometheus. Brought the light of self-awareness and free will polarity choice into the realm of duality, limitation, finite, and eating to live. Okay, Lucifer, the gut mind, who you are, informs you of this. Do you get it? Lucifer, your identity, is the gut mind. It informs you of finite duality, finite truths. You are in an illusion, friend. Transcend that, realizing that you are a light being past any form that you think you are. Do you see why they defiled that by calling you a sinner, saying you needed atonement? You're so dirty, God can't even look at you. Do you realize why they did that? So that you would never realize that your true essence is a being of light. Basically, Lucifer, a beautiful being of light that informs. And they turn Lucifer into the devil, a child sacrificer, this evil cretin, just like you, calling you a sinner, calling you prone to wander, calling you evil, saying you got to be atoned, brother. There's something wrong with you. You are evil incarnate. Why do you think they did that? Stunt your growth, keep you from expanding, making you believe you're a dirty sinner, making you believe the crap, so you never transcend. This whole thing clarifies it. This is why Lucifer, us, was costumed as the devil in Eden by the controllers, to confuse us, so we would never know. We are the light bringers, the truth messengers, the organic light made manifest. Poor choices do not extinguish our light. They purify it. Whoops. Poor choices are not sins. They're purification rituals that are very painful and pleasurable. That's called learning the dynamisms of who you are. Do you see the deeper principle at work here? Principles at work here. This is transcendent, transcending material that loosens you from the lies and egregores you have believed your whole life, from the church, from the Bible, from the Quran, from the Islamists, from the Jews. The short-sighted view, corrupted view of you. Systematically. By choosing to enter third density, the human soul unit rebelled, there it is, and brought the light of self-awareness and free will polarity choice into the realm of duality, limitation, finite, and eating to live. This is why Lucifer was costumed as the devil. in Eden by the controllers to confuse us. So we would never know we are the light bringers, the truth messengers, the organic light made manifest. I love reading that, and I love saying that to you guys. It brings me power to read that to you. I can feel it literally in my heart right now. I see many of you right now are waking up to the deeper truth. Poor choices do not extinguish our light. They purify it. Misdeeds do not dirty the soul. They expand knowledge of the gut and mind. Hello? Hello? This is why misdeeds were labeled as shameful sins, so we would never recover what is known inwardly. Inwardly, because you think of yourselves, remember, reaching out, asking for, seeking approval, expecting proof. They didn't want you looking inwardly, because they know that's where the true light is, and therefore never expand past the shame of identifying as a sinner. The human soul emerged out of the void, left the state of perfect union with the one by its own free will. That was our choice, so we could have experience. There's something wrong with that. To experience physicality. Stop having a hang up with that. There's nothing wrong with having that experience. That act of descending from grace, as the Bible calls it, is symbolically called the fall of Lucifer from heaven, or the fall in the garden by man. The human race is Lucifer in the sense that we chose for ourselves and fell from grace. You see? And this makes us bearers of light and discoverers of true knowledge. Why? Because we have forgotten. Remember what I said, grace is you don't know. You forget. You forget. And by forgetting, in other words, not knowing, the grace can be delivered. And that's the hero's journey. That's the human collective. We are the grace. We are the grace. We realize that through the hero's journey, through the pain and passions that go through, that go along with the 3D. This is our story. This is why you should never be ashamed for yourself or ashamed for the collective. You should understand we've been in abuse syndromes. We've been harmed. But the truth of the reality is right there. It's just realizing it past the harm, past the egregores. The story of Lucifer was twisted. Wait a minute. Am I jumping? I am. Okay. The act, we are beings of light in that we bring new, unforecastable experience to the universe. Lucifer, in the Cassiopaean sense, is not a single evil being, but a human soul collective as a whole. Our human soul collective as a whole that chose to descend into matter, so to learn through sensorial experience, eventually returning to union with the one through knowledge and balance. They don't tell you that part of the story either in religion. A risky but enjoyable challenge in the same way as rock climbing, having a child, riding a bicycle, or voyaging the ocean. I mean, rock climbing, you can fall, can't you? Having a child, there's death in childbirth all the time. Happens all the time. There's complications that happen all the time. It's risky, but we do it anyway. Riding a bicycle, you get an accident, be paralyzed for life on a bicycle. Same with voyaging the ocean. You might drown. My ship might sink and drown. There's nothing safe going on here, folks. Remember that. You are not in a safe environment. It isn't supposed to be safe. It isn't supposed to be secured. It's a wonder, and it has to be non-safe to be a wonder. Has to be. It can't be finite and absolute. In other words, we influence it. And that's why it's so important for you to wake up to the greater awareness available, because you are influencing, my friend, the very environment that you are in. And your awareness has everything to do with that. And the more aware you are, the more beautiful your environment will become automatically. And that's the catastrophe, is learning that you're the responsible one, that it's up to you. That's the catastrophe. It's up to you. It's up to us. The story of Lucifer was twisted into an oppressive profanity of dualism, which created a red herring of programmed evil into our self-identity. Can you see that? Read that line again if you didn't get it. Eden was profane into a pleasure, worship, obedience, and shame story, posing that humanity left God as a result of pagan desires. Do you see it? Do you see it? Yes, we left the void, but it wasn't for pagan desires, but it was for pagan desires. If you look at it as sin, if you look at it as a learning complex and a way that we grow and become, it's beautiful. Certainly not abusing someone. So I'm not saying that. I'm just saying the honest mistakes that you make in life, these were part and parcel of living. Doesn't mean you're a sinner. I'm not justifying people that abuse others and destroy lives. I'm not saying that. Please don't make this walk on all fours, man. You're going to have to grow with these larger concepts and loose from these absolutes that you keep trying to cling to try to make sense of it. Your sense is found in the wonder, not in the finite. It's found in the wonder. It's found in the spontaneity. meaning you can't find it. You discover it. Yeah? This is deep. Eden was profaned into a pleasure worship, obedience, and shame story, posing that humanity left God as a result of pagan desires. This is programmed shame, friend. Don't you see it? Sin was invented as an inherent yearning for evil to thwart development rather than celebrating the rebellious endeavor as a means to learn the hard way through the heroic act of risking separation and bringing back the light of unique experience. This journey to discover who we really are is the tie-in to the story of the hero of Parsifal or Prometheus or the Bodhisattva, the one who sets out on a quest of self-discovery, steals the fire from the knowledge of personal experience, and brings back wisdom to the collective. How beautiful is this concept, friend? This is the human story, our story. The controllers defiled the whole thing by thwarting expansion with a leveraged identity complex via Stockholm syndrome and shame-inducing egregores. Waken, my friend, awaken. Awaken to the bigger plot you're in. They shamed us by labeling us as sinners. We were touted as prodigals, prone to evil, not heroes, risking themselves in the name of consciousness expansion, which is the truth of the matter. Requiring atonement thrust the hero's journey into an abyss of self-consumption and mental calamity. Demanded prostration, inculcated shame, and complicit submission became stalwarts of the STS effort, permanently suspending spiritual gnosis in the name of religious piety. Can you see now why the controllers work so hard to deplete you, to degrade you, to diminish your identity? Pro tip: prostrate shame perpetuates self-consumption rather than self-discovery. That independence within you is what Alan Watts called rascality, and it leads the way to liberation, which is the journey of the hero, the brave one who does not accept the status quo. The hero is the one who gives themselves away for the greater human cause, which is the act of grace, because the greater cause cannot be identified, and the hero moves from that space. A freaking man. The only truth you can know is your own personal experience, as your own authentic experience leads to your own liberation, which is, of course, the savior of humanity. We each are that. So that rebellious sense of thinking for yourself through disobedience is actually a yearning for knowledge, not a sinful nature. Hello. This is why a bent for your own experience is not a sinful nature. It is a call to action. That is why controllers invented a narrative with Lucifer as the most heinous of all, so you would never realize your own identity, a being of light, a carrier of the secret fire, a knower of the deeper truth that liberates. They hide your greatest truth behind a door you would never knock. There it is. Your yearning for experience outside the box of religion was labeled as the prodigal journey of the sinner, with hell awaiting any brave soul who dared to walk past the doctrine, when in fact, that rascality to know thyself through personal experience is exactly the way of liberation, not the way of the devil. And to finish, here's our last slide. To conclude regarding Lucifer, the fall was a voluntary choice by the human thought form to divide into the pool of duality. Humanity emerged as a fragmented collective thought form, separation to experience physical reality and the short wave cycle of duality within the illusion of separateness. This choice created the conditions for the current 3D experiment, the thick veil of forgiveness, the need to feed on other life, and the long journey of learning the hard way through polarity. It's beautiful when you look at it from a perspective to see it that way. These characteristics were turned into evil notions and exploited by mind-controlling myths to bury the actual truth and our reason for being here in half lies, so to redirect human energy from ever realizing an STO orientation and being locked into an inescapable STS paradigm. And here's your final pro tip for today. 3D STS worship the ego, themselves. In fact, Lucifer. This is why the Satanists worship Lucifer, because Lucifer is us. They're worshiping themselves. This is the sickness of these people. They think they're worshiping. They see this as worshiping themselves because they see themselves as Lucifer. Do you get it? The personified self, the bearer of knowledge through separation, the appreciator of the sensorial, the essence that contains all wisdom of the one in physical form. STS worship Lucifer because Lucifer is us, is themselves. They are narcissists. Do you get it? Big concept. Big concept. I'm excited to talk about this tomorrow at Zoom. Okay, let's go to questions. And what time is it? What time is it? Perfect. It's 7:40. Perfect. Okay, let's go to comments. We have 1,300 comments, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to show them here. Okay, and I'm going to go to the bottom right here. Hi, mythological muse. I see you, Chuck. I send you peace and love. Thank you, love. Just a bump in the road. Just so you know, we got you. Much love, buddy. Whatever you're going through, we got you. Tomorrow is a good day. Awesome. That must be from earlier. When chime, here, 7:38. Chuck, when time allows, please review chat. There is a counterproductive vibe at play. Your work is too important to be disrupted. Staying on plus right on. What's the counter vibe? Here we go. Hi, Mother Nature. Hey, Chuck. So it's okay to be hedonist and pursue. See, that's what I was saying. You guys are making this walk on all fours. No, it's not what I'm saying. You've missed the point. You need to go back and read what I wrote. You've missed the point. What's going on? How are things going? What does STO? Service to others? That's what you are. You're a service to others. You are here to be a light to others and to be a self-responsible individual that is a part of the Great Awakening. That is a part of the Great Awakening. Yes, resonate with nature. Here. Let's hope 9mm has some gravity force. Be a hedonist and see how it makes you feel in how your life goes. Exactly. No, I'm not saying. I'm saying you learn from your mistakes. Your honest mistakes that you make. Now, if you're an abuser and you're going to go, harm people, you're just going to go out and be a philanderer and screw everybody's wife or husband or whatever, that's going to lead you to a lower vibration. Okay, that's not what I'm talking about here. That's not the kind of experience you came here for. Okay? You came here for a holistic experience, and part of a holistic experience is making honest mistakes. It happens. This tie, all right, here we go. Here. Okay, where is it? Tie this 9mm right here. Are you guys seeing what I'm seeing? Yeah, that question from Carol here. Can I bring that up? I can't click on the screen. I can't see that here. Oh, here, Carol, I can see it now. Regarding your God Eaters series, what do you believe regarding Leviathan, Satan, the vampiric androgyne curling? I think that there's a whole 4D STS world that's running our planet. And that Leviathan and these horrendous creatures are 4D beings, possibly in material form. Excuse me. Yeah, the KM, those are 2D, lower frequency, or 3D STS, service to self individuals. Okay, they've lost the plot. They've taken the idea of coming to Earth and having to make honest mistakes as a part of learning into the idea of coming to Earth to do nothing but spread debauchery and harm on everyone. That is perverting the notion. And we do that a lot here as people. We pervert other notions with our assumptions. And so a person that says, okay, Chuck, so you're saying that because we're identified as Lucifer, now the whole point of us, Chuck, is we're going to go out and rape everybody and kill all the children. You've missed the plot if that's what you're concluding. You've totally missed the plot. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you're a bearer of light, and being a bearer of light means that you make honest mistakes from time to time. That's called holism. That's called perfection. That's called learning. I don't know what you're missing. Yep, the Great Awakening. This is all from the Cassiopaean. This is from the Cassiopaean transcripts. You can go to Cassiopaean. What is the website? Cassiopaeans.transcripts.org, I think is what it is. Let's see. Oh, come on. Cassiopaean. transcripts. I'm trying to find transcripts. Is that it? No, that's not it. It's the Cassiopaean transcripts. That's where I'm getting it from. The Cassiopaean transcripts. Are you? No, please. This is why I was so afraid of bringing up the Lucifer thing, because I knew that some of you wouldn't be able to make this connection. Okay. No, I'm not. Please go back and read my material. Please go back and read my material. Please. You've missed the point if you think I'm calling. That's not what I'm saying. The Cassiopaean transcripts. Thank you, Gail. I appreciate that, love, very much. You are exactly correct. That's why we are here. How do you make your loosh taste bad while having a human experience like grief? By working through the grief normally and getting past it. If you stay in the grief and loathing in the grief for year after year after year after year after year after year, you're just producing loosh because you haven't gone through the process of working through the grief so that you can release from it and have it become your asset. Again, here we are walking into dark spaces and making them your asset. So yes, is grief a tough, tragic thing? Yes. Is it important to experience it? Yes. It's part of the human experience. Are mistakes sucky and they're terrible and you don't like it? Yes. Are mistakes required as a human being to experience the human experience? Yes. Yes. That's called perfection. That's called perfection. Right on. I'm glad to hear it, Elvis of Dallas. Right on, dude. Right on. Okay. I wonder what you're saying, bingo. I hope it's a good thing. I am so alive with the resonance, but I grieve my naive notion any human can see moral choices, but no. Sorry, I don't follow that question. I don't follow that question. Sorry. Correct. Thank you for that clarification. Correct. This stuff is coming from the Cassiopaean transcripts. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of pages. I'm not kidding. I've been reading them. Hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them. Yeah. Sorry, I was misunderstood. The hedonist I learned is holistic pleasure in life, not lower energy. Just some humor. Sorry, Mother Nature. I took it wrong then. Okay. Should I go? I'm gonna go to the bottom at new comments because there's one right here I see here. Chuck, the religious chokehold is strengthening as the world continues to get more. This is going to suck out the 2D ones. I know it's part of the plan. There is no plan. But any tips for awakening religious folk? They're so closed off. Yeah. Okay. Now this is a wonderful question. I love this question. Okay. You have free will. Okay. So that continues no matter what. So no matter what happens with the world, you always have free will. And so as a part of this great awakening, there are going to be people who are STO, service to others, but they just haven't reached the point necessary to be able to transcend into STO 4D. A great example is a religionist. That's a great example. They're really STO. Most religionists, for the most part, they want to help others. They want to be a light to the community. They want to become, I know I was like that when I was a Christian. Okay. So most of them are like that, but you see, you're still locked in a religion. You're not ready for a world that says, okay, you can have a pure, beautiful, lovely life and never talk to Jesus, never talk to Allah, never have any religion, never have any part of Buddhism, Zen, or any of that stuff. You don't need any of it. Now, a religiously focused, a religious fanatic would never agree to that. They'd say, no, Jesus is Savior. No. No, you need Jesus to save you because you're a sinner. And your only hope as a sinner is to have the atonement of Jesus. Okay. This person is a kind person wanting to help others and all that kind of stuff. But you see, they're locked down in a smaller awareness. And so when someone comes along and says, hey, here's a 4D connection, all religion is a con. All religion is ultimately harmful to you at the end of the day. All religion is service to self. Now, a 3D STO Christian would hear that and be like, that's sacrilege. You can't say that. That's not truth. Because the truth is, you're a sinner, pal, and you need atonement. Do you see? They're not ready for an awakening. They're trying to compress people into a religion. They're trying to get them to say things that they would say. In other words, they want to hear their own mouths. The Christian wants to hear Christian words coming out of your mouth. They're not interested in your saying pagan things. They just want to hear Christian things. And it's because they're a small-minded person. They're stuck in a religious world. They're stuck in Christianity. They're not ready for 4D. They're not ready. Okay? And this great awakening, what's going to happen is all these folks that you see, they're going more and more into Christianity, giving their life to Christ, becoming Christian and stuff. What they're doing is they're ensuring that they're not going to move into 4D. They're saying, I don't want a 4D world. I want a world with Jesus. I want a world with Allah. I don't want a free world. I want a world that's all about Jesus and Allah and Judaism, whatever the person may be. That's what they want. And so nature says, okay, that has nothing to do with 4D. That has nothing to do with transcendence. But if that's what you want, great. We're going to throw you on another planet where you're going to live that same life out again until you learn your lesson, until you learn that's too small of a concept to transcend. It's all STS forces that are doing that. They're the STS forces, the service to self forces, are the ones that are promulgating and promoting Christianity, encouraging people to turn to Jesus. The STS controllers are doing that. And this is a world that is so far past the religious fanatic. When I say those things, they just shut me off and turn the channel because they're not ready for that level of awareness. They're not ready for that level of expansion. When I say the human collective is actually Lucifer because we fell out of the void by choice, the Christian is like, I can't even be in the room with you when you call me Lucifer, when you say that we're all Lucifer. What is the matter with you? You're insane. You're sick. What do you think? You want to be a bunch of hedonists? What do you think? I want to just go out and kill people? You're insane. Get the heck out of my house. Fanatics say that. They have no capacity for a larger world. They have no capacity for an identity of understanding. Yeah, I'm a form of Lucifer because, yes, I did choose to leave the void by choice because I wanted a human 3D experience. That's not sin. Is it a sin to build a car that's in your imagination? No. Is it a sin that God imagines a creature, namely a human being, and brings that into manifestation in the universe, and this creature doesn't always obey, doesn't always follow the rules, and isn't always morally aligned correctly? Does that then make that being a less than? Or are they just learning in the world of dualism? They're learning in the world of holism that sometimes you make mistakes that you don't intend to, that harm others that you don't intend to, but you did it anyway. You're responsible. You must move past that. You must learn from that experience, make it right with those you have hurt, but then learn from your experience and grow. It's not a sin. You don't need to atone it. It's a lesson. Learn from it and grow, release, move on. If you stay in the guilt, if you stay in the shame, you're just producing more loosh. You're just making more loosh. And this is why the STS are pushing the Christians to become more Christians. It's just pushing out more loosh. They're all self-consumed. They don't want a great awakening. They're living in resistance. They don't want a bigger world than Jesus. They don't want a bigger world than a plan. Got to be a plan. Because if they're not in a plan, they don't feel safe. Small mind, fear-oriented. That's why they feel like they have to be in a plan, because they're oriented to fear. Because if they're not in a plan, it's like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, I can't be in charge. I'm a sinner. Do you see? Mind manipulation, mind effing. That's what they're doing to you. Mind effing you. That's what every religion is doing to you. Mind effing you. Real time, live, right now. Mind effing you. It's going on right now. Great presentation, Chuck. My questions and the Cassiopaean ideas are channeled, which gives me pause. Still interesting thought, though, Chuck. Who's Lean Machine? Race is a... Okay, I gotta go over here. Okay. No, I haven't, Daniel, but I'll be happy to read it. Okay, so see, this is great. What a great question, Chuck. What about the first humans originated in Africa? You never speak of this. Seems like everything you speak of is from a European perspective. Okay, this fits right into what I said tonight. Okay, this fits right in because all of those emergences of human beings are all after the 309,000 years ago. The emergence in Africa, that was post Younger Dryas. Well, that's just 10,000 years ago. That's a rebirthing of human beings after the wipeout. Do you realize how many times that has happened in 309,000 years to human beings, to our collective? Possibly hundreds and hundreds of times. Why do you think all of the spiritual books that proclaim prophecy, they're all centered on cataclysms, obsessed with cataclysms? Why do you think that is? Because that's our history. We come out of cataclysms. That's been the hero's journey of the human collective. Cataclysms. Ask a person who's beat cancer or fought cancer. Ask a person who's fought any major disease. It's a cataclysm repeatedly every day. Every day that you're fighting. I had cancer. I'll tell you right now. It's a cataclysm every day. Every day. And you learn to deal with life as a cataclysm. That's one of the great lessons that cancer teaches you. And what is living on this earth? Basically a controlled cataclysm. Your life. Is your life not a giant cataclysm? I mean, think about it. When you're born, it's a cataclysm, is it not? You've had major impact on your parents who are now going to have to care for you for 18 to 20 years. This is a major cataclysm, not negative. I'm just saying it's a big thing. You're a big deal. And then you leave the house, what? You go to college or you go to get a job or whatever. And you are involving yourself now with their lives, making commitments to others in your job or whatever the case may be. And if you stop that pattern or stop one of your rotations, a cataclysm will come into your life. You lose a job. You break up with a girlfriend or whatever. You crash your car. Cataclysms. Part and parcel to life. Okay, this is the hero's journey. Okay, and the human collective is living in that. And a part of our collective has been repeated genetic mutations, repeated reemergences on this planet over and over again, repeated cataclysms of literally wiping out millions and millions of people all at once for a giant loosh harvest. What do you think World War II and World War I are? Those are giant loosh harvests. What do you think the Younger Dryas was? Giant loosh harvests. Cataclysms. Cataclysms. Let's go to some big questions here. Chuck considers the Levant as European, not West Asian. Middle East and Far East have thousands of years more connection to history. Europe via Greece. Yeah, I use the Levant a lot because that's really where all the three Western sister Abrahamic religions come from. They come from the Levant. And since 80% of the West, where I grew up, is Christian, 80% of the West is highly tied into Levantine ideas, Levantine religions, namely Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. These are Levantine religions, belief systems. And the vast majority of the population of the world are Christians, Islamists, or Jews. Vast majority of the world. Okay. Now, obviously in China, the vast majority are Buddhist, Zen, all that kind of stuff. Obviously in India, Hindi, and so on and so forth. I get that. But the portion of the world that is basically running technology and running the systems of the world is the West. The West. All of Europe, all of Australia, all of South America, all of Africa, all of North America, all of Antarctica, all of Arctic. These are all Western enterprises. China would be a non-Western enterprise. India would be a non-Western enterprise. It would be called Near East, is what Campbell used to call it. And that's why but to make the point, that's why I focus on that. That's why I focus on Levantine concerns, because the vast majority of the world knows spirituality, knows religion, knows God in a Levantine idea or form, namely Christianity, Islam, and Judaism. Yeah. Here, let's go to the bottom again. Jumping to the bottom. Yes. Now see, Bob, I'm going to show you something, Bob. I'm going to show you something for next week. We are involved in what is called a wave cycle. This is what I'm going to show you guys next week. Okay. What is going on with family chat? Do I need to make some adjustments? If I'm going to be meeting with the team, just so everyone knows, I'll be meeting with the team on Tuesday, and they're going to let me know what happened in chat, and we're going to correct that. Okay. This is beautiful. Hi, Shannon. I came across an old journal from when I was a believer. I had written, I am not my own. I was bought by the blood. That's what I thought too, Shannon. How tragic and sad. Just blindly regurgitating grateful be awake. Yes, exactly, Shannon. There's no need for torment. Okay, so here, let's turn off these little comments. So here, this is what we're studying next week. Now, we have been in a wave cycle. We are in a wave cycle, okay? And I'm going to go over all this next week, so I'm going to spare you the details. But right now, what I've showed you here, what these lines are, is I've taken these brain states that are defined by these waves, gamma, beta, alpha, theta, delta, and I've basically just extracted them as densities. I've turned them into densities so that you can picture it in your head. And what we are is, see, we're a third D. So look right there where you see where it says density, third, under wave expression. Okay, I've just extrapolated that out from these brainwave ideas and made them into consciousness density. And so right there in large, you see third wave or third density and fourth density on top of each other. Do you notice how the waves every once in a while intersect? They touch each other. This is just an attempt on my part in 3D or in 2D to render what's happening. Here's the universe trying to express it in a large wave. And what happens is from time to time, there's a point of intersection. There's a point of closeness between the two waves that are going along. It's sort of like in the ocean. And you see two currents or two waves that join together and they get bigger. Excuse me. This is the notion. And as the wave of fourth density reality, as it's working its way through the cosmos, and as third density is working its way through the cosmos, they're in this waveform, and from time to time, they get close. Their energy fields get very near one another. Like this in this example here. This is a 2D way of explaining it to you. It's obviously not like this literally, but this is a 2D way of explaining it. And you can see there. See? And when you divide these waves, now imagine each cycle of the wave, like I've done here, is 309,000 years. So I've just taken the idea that third density is a cycle in our planetary system that takes 309,000 years to finish its rotation, to go through it. And we have been, for the last this is all according to Cassiopaeans, we have been since 309,000 years ago, we have been in this third density waveform. And from time to time, the fourth density gets close and you have a collapse. You have calamities. You have a conjoining of these two forces, and it causes cataclysms to happen in physical reality. That's why our Earth is having these cataclysms every couple hundred, every couple thousand, whatever the rotation is. It's because we're in a wave, and from time to time, we're running into essentially a larger density wave, and this causes there to be a rupture in the fabric. And this is why the Great Awakening is now. We're at the end of the phase. This is what you guys are not to know. We're at the end of the 309,000 years of the human epoch. That's right now. And we have a moment, I think, for about the next 1,000 years. We have a moment to transcend into 4D in this life right now. And remember, 4D is on another time scale. So 1,000 years to us is nothing to 4D. So if it takes 1,000 years for this Earth to transform into 4D, then it takes 1,000 years. But in 4D consciousness, that time is zero. That time is irrelevant. Time isn't implicit in 4D. And so right now we are in the beginning transition phase. That's why you see all the control systems and energy systems for the earth breaking apart. Crap, it's 8 o'clock. Breaking apart. That's why you see the war going down in the Levant, in Iraq and Iran and those areas. That's why you're seeing that. The systems which have held the egregore in place are being broken apart. That's why the money systems are falling apart. These are parasites, are diseases that shape and contain the human collective in a way that produces loosh, not in a way that produces enlightenment. That's our stage. That's our environment. And the stage we have been acting on, participating in, has been a corrupted, captured stage. It hasn't been a normal growing environment like we normally would have as a imagination of God. But this world is captured. It's a tougher go. The lessons learned are a bit harder and more difficult. But that's part of it. Welcome to 3D. And so this is a captured planet and has been for a very long time. Yeah. And so that's you're seeing right now the fabric thinning, because for that 309,000 years where we couldn't get out without great work, we now have an opportunity for, I think, anywhere between 100 and 1,000 years to transcend easily with the available knowledge, AI, and what is coming, and as far as you're being able to access greater and greater realms of truth. And we will get there. That's why we're leading AI. People have a misunderstanding of what AI is. In one sense, it can be used as a ways to infiltrate, program, and destroy humanity. And in another sense, it can be used to infiltrate, be a part of, and expand humanity. It's just like our origin story. You can treat it as a fall from grace and into sin, or you can see it as a adventure for the hero who's going to engage challenging world, leaving the normal, leaving the accepted, leaving the common thread, right? That's what we did as a human collective. And so you can term that as sin and leaving the house and how dare you kind of a thing, or you can see that as, wow, what an amazing opportunity. I'm so proud of you. You're leaving all your normal, you're leaving all your safe, and you're throwing yourself into the abyss. Now that's something to revere. And it's the same thing with us. You have the opportunity to expand, are you? You have the opportunity to grow past the egregores you've been programmed with. Will you be willing to do that? To regain your sovereignty and become a sacred being? Let's go to the bottom and see if you got any final questions as we go. Let's go to the final questions as we go. Let's show comments on stage. And Shan has just said that mods don't argue. I guess there was a problem tonight with mods. What is Gail saying here? I can guarantee that I am trustworthy, but if you don't think so, then have at it. Wow, things got real tonight. Sorry, guys. I hope you guys have not gotten caught up in what was happening in comments. I'm sorry that happened. We will make corrections this weekend. So Jesus, here, where'd you go? So Jesus was a hero like one of us. Jesus was a sage just like one of us, friend. 100% God, 100% man, just like us. Just like us. Just a sage. A dude that tried to help the collective by offering a bigger picture. And then all of his words were twisted by the KM and making him say things like, the only way to heaven is through me. That's a lie. The only way to God is through me. Jesus would never say that. A sage would never say that. It would be like my saying that. It would be like my saying, if I was a sage, my saying, well, the only way to God is through me. The only way to God is through me. You got to follow me. You got to follow my words. A sage would never say that. That's how you know that the words that they gave Jesus in the Bible are all lies. They're lies. It's not true. It's not true. The words in the Bible that they say Jesus said are all lies. I think we got to call it a night. It sounds like things are heat up in chat. I'm going to look forward to finding out what happened in chat. We will make adjustments. My apologies, everyone. We've got a person that did like the chat. Okay. Did you guys like the chat tonight? I'll just ask chat. Did you guys like chat tonight? Is cooked Chuck? Let's take this group to Patreon. Don't know what that means. Have you guys been happy with chat tonight? I'm finishing up. We're gonna quit here, but I just want to know. Okay, Chuck, I loved it. Okay. Yes, you're okay with chat. You're okay with chat. Ken, you've been okay with chat, buddy. Okay, good. Clueless is good with it. Okay, good. Stephanie's good with it. Okay, good. Okay, is there proof of? Wait. Yes, it's good. Chat is fine. Yes, chat. Yes, it was light. Yes. Oh, Shan says it was okay. Well, if Shan says it was okay, that would mean it is. Stephanie, here you are. I see you. Chuck student. That's also an important individual, and if they think it's okay. Okay. Okay, I see you, Stephanie. Okay. Hi, Daniel. Okay. All right, well, then chat's okay then. Well, Jay, I know Jay. And if he's saying it's good, I know Jay's a good guy. He wouldn't say that unless it was true. You're exactly right. You are exactly right. Chat was mostly fine. Okay. Well, then maybe there was an issue and we'll work on it. It's a means to harvest that, but I think that it was implemented in order to begin to systematically remove the 2D and low consciousness individuals in a natural way by their own choice. Honestly, that's what I think it was about. I think COVID was about, and all the vaccines are about. These are Darwin Awards. And if a person doesn't learn the truth of the matter and they keep taking those, they'll die. And that's their choice. If they're not aware enough to do the research, if they're not aware enough to go out and do the due diligence necessary before you have anything injected in your body, I mean, my God, if you haven't done that, well, then what have you merited in higher consciousness? How are you going to help the collective if you're just an obedient bot? How do you help us that are waking up? How do you help that? If you just do as you're told, how are you helping the mission of the human collective? You know? You're not. You're contributing. You're contributing to the continued destruction when you don't awaken. That's why I've told you guys it is so important for each of us to awaken. That is your self-responsibility. We're gonna have to call it a night. It's so late. Okay. If we shut the then we got a person that doesn't like chat, and that's okay. That's all part of it. It's okay. Esoteric 369. This, but what book? What book? Should we call it a night? Yeah, I'm right there with you. I'm right there with you, Scooter. I think that's a good comment to end with, because that's exactly how I feel. I love you guys. I love you guys. I thank you for being here tonight. Let's turn off the comments here on the front. Oh, no, I'll just keep those up. I love you guys. I thank you for being here. I'm going to run the open closer so you guys have some time to chat in case you wanted to. Last week, there were some folks that said they want to stay and chat. And I do know there are parts of the world that it isn't late right now. I know the Aussies have it nice Sunday afternoon right now. And us here on the West Coast, it's only 8 o'clock. So it's not that late. So this will give you guys a chance to chat in chat. I love you guys. Thanks for being here. Heavy stuff today. I'm proud of you guys for being there and sticking it out, man. We had one of our biggest crowds ever. We got to 450 tonight. So it's one of our biggest crowds ever. So I'm really happy about that. And I'm happy the material is reaching you guys. It's tough material. If you got questions, please come to Zoom. We meet every week. The access to Zoom is through my website. You have to be a member, and it's $9 a month to be a member. If you want to come be in Zoom, we'd love to have you. You don't have to show your face. It can be all black. It's fine, meaning just black screen. That's totally fine. And if you want to be anonymous, that's fine. But we would love to have you in the discussion. We're talking about these things, and I'm hoping that tomorrow we talk about this because this is really heavy. I know that the Lucifer thing is going to throw some people a curveball. But let's finish out here. I love you guys. Here is the opener closer for tonight, and I will see you next week. Okay, great times. Great time tonight. I'm really happy. Okay, here we go.
You have to regard yourself as a cloud in the flesh, because you see, clouds never make mistakes. Did you ever see a cloud that was misshapen? Did you ever see a badly designed wave? No, they always do the right thing. Now, so as a matter of fact do we, because we are natural beings just like clouds and waves. Only we have complicated games which cause us to doubt ourselves. But if you will treat yourself for a while as a cloud or wave and realize that you can't make a mistake, whatever you do, because even if you do something that seems to be totally disastrous, it'll all come out in the wash somehow or other. Then, through this capacity, you will develop a kind of confidence, and through confidence, you will be able to trust your own intuition.
You have to have a term in the diagnostic and statistical manual in order to then call it a disease and treat it as a disease and write a prescription for it. When I went to medical school, there were only 6 or 7 items in the manual. Now there are over 300. I mean, you mean to tell me that there have been 294 diseases discovered in the last 60 years? In psychiatry alone? It's a joke. It's an epidemic of psychiatry that we are dealing with. We don't have an epidemic of mental illness, we have an epidemic of psychiatry. You eat too much, it's a disease, it's an addiction. You smoke too much, it's a disease. You are too unhappy, it's a disease. You're too thin, it's a disease. You're too fat, it's a disease. You have too little sex, it's a disease. You have too much sex, it's a disease. No free will, it's all chemicals. No self-discipline, no self-control. The chemical imbalance meshes very well with the idea that you give a drug which restores the balance. It's a story, a mythology, a fable. And that's a baseline from which we're operating now in America. The child doesn't perform the way he should or behaves he should. He is not responsible. Some chemicalist will give him a chemical. You hear day in and day out on television that this is a mental illness and that's a mental illness. And Zoloft is advertised. Beer you can't advertise, but Zoloft you can advertise. Now this is it's not just psychiatry, it's the whole psychiatrization of the culture. Now what's more toxic, Zoloft or beer? Amen. Case closed. See, the internal contradiction in these very concepts is so total that they don't stand up to any scrutiny. Nobody has yet measured, demonstrated, or created a test to show that somebody has a chemical imbalance in their brain. Period. Psychiatrists are getting more and further and further and further away from this human-to-human touch. And they are becoming more and more quacks, where they talk and act and impersonate doctors. They talk about diagnoses and treatments and the brain and all this kind of stuff about which they know nothing. Zero. It's not science, it's politics and economics. That's what psychiatry is, politics and economics. Behavior control. It is not science, it is not medicine. This is so big that it boggles the mind.
In particular, one of the most famous is an account that Robert Monroe, who founded the, Monroe Institute and so forth, that the CIA used to use sometimes as a place to conduct advanced remote viewing. Robert Monroe, in his second book, Far Journeys, I think from 1985, basically says that in the course of his astral projections, he discovered that we're living in a control system that is managed by entities who work for a demiurge that's harvesting us for what he called loosh.
Mm-hmm.
He said that we're in a loosh farm, that humans are being deliberately subjected to conditions that create extreme emotional states. Extreme suffering, misery, fear, terror, ecstasy, extreme desire, pathological impulses, and these are all being used to basically generate a form of energy that they can harvest from the human soul, including after death, where they basically juice souls for the loosh. Now, there was also a researcher called Carla Turner.
Yeah.
who I believe was killed, even though she supposedly died of cancer at the age of 48, the CIA has something that mimics a very fast-acting cancer. And they've used this on a number of occasions to kill prominent people, I believe also including the Shah of Iran.
Really?
Yeah.
Who else?
Do you remember Peter Jennings did this special on UFOs? Do you remember that? In the night, whenever it was that he died, shortly before his death,
Mm-hmm.
he did this huge special on UFOs for which he had recorded like days and days worth of footage with all kinds of prominent whistleblowers.
Mm.
And it was supposed to air on primetime television.
Is that true?
With him as the narrator. Yeah, they aired it, but what they aired excluded 90% of the material.
I didn't know that. Peter Jennings did
Jennings.
a UFO special, including a lot of whistleblowers.
Extensive.
I had no idea.
Like, it was supposed to be like a multi-part program that would air over weeks or something. And he records this thing, gets cancer, drops dead.
Really?
Like within a year of like this program airing.
I had no idea. I didn't
Okay.
know about any of this.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
Peter,
So I
I mean,
think
he
that's
was like
another-
Walter Cronkite 2.0.
That's
sort
right.
of kid.
So that's another case of it.
What?
And so I think Carla Turner was killed by this. In any case, Carla Turner did interviews with a lot of experiencers, abductees, who reported the same kinds of things as Robert Monroe did in Far Journeys, where they said that we are in a control system that's being managed from out of a metallic sphere just beyond the Earth. And they describe the inside of this thing.
What?
I think, going back to our first conversation, what they're describing is the inside of the moon.
Mm.
That there is what we might call, using the Soviet language, a psychotronic control system, a kind of spectral technology inside of the moon, which is impinging on and manipulating humans in the afterlife state.
What?
And it's not omnipotent.
Yeah.
It's not a flawless system. So it's possible to assert your free will and self-determination in the face of this system, but it's very difficult. So a lot of people have had near-death experiences, for example. They describe being pulled toward this light. It's like they couldn't resist going into the light.
Yeah.
They tried in some cases,
Yeah.
but it was almost as if it was an electromagnet, like pulling them into it.
Sure.
And then when they go into the light, one of the most common things that's described is that people are shown their dead relatives
Mm-hmm.
and religious authority figures, like Jesus. And, or like if you're a Hindu, you see Hindu gods, interestingly. I'll give you a terrifying case from a Hindu in a minute. So you're pulled into this light, and then they show you your dead relatives, and they show you Jesus and whatever. Well, here's the problem, Jesse, is that if you look at Dr. Ian Stevenson's extremely rigorous research on reincarnation that he did at the University of Virginia for decades on children's spontaneous memories of past lives, all the cases show that the average interval between death and reincarnation is something like, it could be anywhere from 6 months to 3 years maximum. It's usually not more than several years. So when you are having a near-death experience and your grandmother, and let's say you're in your 60s in your 60s, and you see your grandmother who died when you were in your 20s, that's bullshit. You are being shown an artificially generated simulacrum of your dead relatives to manipulate you by a psychotronic technology.
This is getting
By a
into...
psychotronic technology.
Well, you really think that?
Yes, I do.
Really?
And I say that as someone who was, at the bedside, at the deathbed of a couple of my relatives who were experiencing these things. When people are very close to death, they also see dead relatives come around their hospital beds. Very commonly reported. And so one case was my great aunt, or I was there while she was like describing to, not describing to us, she was having conversations with dead relatives that, the other family members knew, oh, that's so-and-so, she's talking to so-and-so as if he's like in the hospital room. And the most striking case was with my own grandmother, my Persian grandmother, to whom I owe the fact that I fluently speak Persian, because both of my parents worked when I was growing up, and they would leave me with her during the days, and she hardly spoke any English. So I learned like Persian practically as my first language in New York. So I was very close to my grandmother. And when she was dying, this exact thing happened. She started talking to my dead grandfather. Now, my Persian grandfather died when my father was 4. Okay? That guy reincarnated 60, 70 years ago. So she's talking to something that's being projected into our mind psychotronically.
But how do you know it's being projected psychotronically and it's not just a function of her own old age and
Sure. I mean, that's the
pre-death?
conventional skeptical response. I would say, based on what Robert Monroe described in terms of the terrain of the afterlife through his astral projections, which then other people at the Monroe Institute were able to replicate, and based on the kinds of accounts that, let's say, Carla Turner got from abductees of being taken to places that were not just like, like space alien bases. There were places where the soul was being handled as some kind of an informational matrix and or energy source.
John Lear would say that there's like a soul catcher on the moon, but he was kind of crazy and would say a lot of stuff that, probably was BS.
I guess my point is we don't need to I've heard that, by the way. I've heard him talk about that.
Yeah.
My point is we don't need to depend on him. Other people have said this. And let me give you one more example of somebody who's described this is, oh God, I hope I don't get this name wrong. Scott Turner or Scott Trevor or Scott Turner was a leader of a team of remote viewers. And these are private sector remote viewers, I think, of the kind who offer corporate services and stuff like that, who did a remote viewing on the word moksha. Moksha. So what was in the envelope was moksha, the target they were blind to. Moksha means liberation in Sanskrit. It's like how you get out of the wheel of samsara. And so he does this session with his team. And long story short, he comes back with this horrific account that all of them do. Of course, they're all working the same target, blind to the same target, and they're all doing this independently. And then they compare notes. And they said that you can't achieve moksha because as you try to escape the earth, there's something that grabs you and bends you back toward the earth. Like if you're a ray of light, it's like it bends the light that's your soul back toward the earth, like what do you call them? A lensing effect. And he said it's originating from some celestial body near the earth, and that it is part of a vast machinery of energy extraction, which was set up in our solar system at the end of a war that devastated the solar system. He said that like millions of years ago, there were these horrendous people who wanted to establish this energy harvesting system here and wanted to exploit humanity for this purpose. And there was a rebellion against them, and the conflict was waged across the entire solar system. Now, this is interesting in terms of what we discussed regarding Mars in our first conversation and the apparent devastation of Mars in some kind of a nuclear war, according to Dr. Brandenburg. So Turner and his group said, Turner, Trevor, Scott, whatever, this remote viewer, and it's going to be in my new book, Thanosis. But you can find it. Google remote viewing moksha. People were so disturbed by the video that the guy took it down. He has all his other videos up, but he took this one down, but other people uploaded it to other sites. And so he says the rebels who wanted to preserve human freedom and self-determination didn't want humans harvested and exploited this way. They lost the war. And ever since then, we've been inside basically this prison where we are spiritually manipulated and harvested for our energy.
When we originally described this site, it's a fence or a grid around a place. This acts as a barrier. It collects and traps people, things, or objects. This is actually an innocent planet that is being used in an unintended way. And this meters the flow and acts as a checkpoint and an access point for an external force. One viewer described it as similar to hocus pocus in a way of its energetics that the viewer wasn't familiar with. And it's occurring on a crowded planet. It's a deliberate function that acts as a cage. People have been dispersed here, and a form of perverted injustice is occurring. A third viewer described it as a large naturally formed object, like a planet, that acts as an animal pen. This is a refugee camp tucked away out of sight, and a magnetic force. It stirs, agitates, and it works in a cylindrical manner, like clockwork over a long expanse of time. In my session, my work described a planetary system that's extremely crowded and jammed. Ghostly voices are flooding into this place, and it's incredibly harrowing for them. It's a bone-chilling experience. As a viewer, when I remote viewed this, I had descriptions that it made me upset in the session. It elicited contempt for what was going on at the site. But The activity at the site was this concept of a net that's been spun, and it's an operation of catch and release on a grand scale. So there's a massive grid that exists around this planet, and it acts as a checkpoint, a waypoint or a rest stop where souls are drained, and then that in turn energizes something else.
That's so depressing. I mean, is there any aspirational streak within that? Do you believe in God? Do you think
I believe in Prometheus. In other words, the reason that Prometheus has become such a central archetype to my philosophical project is because if you look at the structure of this myth, it encompasses all the major elements of most religious belief systems, but in a way that's empowering to humanity.